Aha! You have to hit that button. It helps when you click it. Welcome, one and all, to Modern Day Debate. We are a neutral, nonpartisan platform welcoming everyone from all walks of life. If you're looking for even more fantastic debates like evolution on trial, well, we are all over the interwebs, including your favorite podcasting platform, like our new TikTok, the link of which is in the description below. So if you enjoy debates, please don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. Which brings us to Evolution on Trial with our debaters, CP and Snake, and Nathan and Witsit Gets It, here to help us find out. And if you enjoy what either of them have to say tonight, all of our guest links are in the description below. We will also be moving into a Q&A after the conversation, so you can send in your burning desire question. And of course, super chats will get yours sent to the top of the list. But with that, we are going to hand it over to the opening statement. The floor is all yours.
Hello, everybody. So we are going to be here. We are going to be going against what is traditionally taught in our educational system, that being evolution. And so I actually did want to start this out with something that is not evolutionarily based up front. You don't need to believe in evolution or not to for this information. But this here is actually a picture of the leading cause of death in our country. This is late stage heart disease on the A side. And then the B side is a 5-year follow-up. They widen their arteries, not just in their heart, but their whole body. No medication, no surgery. This has been done with nutrition alone. This is the only way in our medical clinical data that has been shown to reverse heart disease. This is done with plant-based eating. So people with chest pain, joint pain, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, they have dropped their cholesterol 100 points, blood pressure 20 points in just a matter of weeks. And why I bring that up is actually because, so I'm going to school for nutritional cardiology, and I have to write a paper through the evolutionary worldview lens because that is what is taught in science. And so I want to write a paper on the metabolic development of humanity and go through the key developmental points of our metabolism, starting from the beginning to now, to show why plants are the only way so far that have been shown to reverse heart disease. And why I start with that is because what that is right there, what this picture is, this angiogram, this is data. This is something that we have observed, we have recorded, and that is something that is required when you claim to be science. Once you claim to be a science, you fall under the scrutiny of the scientific method. You're allowed to be criticized. You're allowed to be examined for strengths and weaknesses. And you have to be able to validate that with evidence. The other thing that evolution does is it makes worldview exclusive claims. So evolution makes claims. A typical counter to evolution would be creation. Not any particular brand of creation, but just creation in general. What evolution does claim that a lot of creation does not are worldview exclusive claims. That would be something like non-life being able to become alive, which is very important because if no life can form naturally, then nothing starts evolving. And so that is a worldview exclusive claim. You also have the exclusive claims like prokaryotes becoming eukaryotes. You have to be able to demonstrate that a parent's population can over time have a bifurcation of the populations, and suddenly you have offspring that are plants on one side, plant cells, and animal cells on the other side. This is a worldview exclusive claim of evolution when you take it to the macro sense of common ancestry. So these are claims that will need to be shown because they do defy our everyday beliefs. The only thing that we have ever observed, and I've gone to quite a few sources for this to confirm it, but the only thing that we have ever observed is non-life staying not alive. We're not able to naturally swirl chemicals and then have them produce life. and we only have ever observed life producing life, never spawning from not living. You also have like bacteria have only ever remained bacteria. Richard Lenski right now has the longest running experiment, and those are still E. coli. They are not becoming a new type of, say, algae or anything like that. Dogs have always produced dogs, and people have always produced people. That's all we've observed. That's all we recorded. So that is our scientific data. So your worldview exclusive claim that is counter to these 100% of scientific observations we've made in the natural world. You have to be able to show something that is to the contrary of everything that we have ever observed and ever recorded. Because as far as creation goes, in time, you could show a dog produce a non-dog that would falsify creation. But until then, that at least jives with creation. But evolution claims that a tree shrew millions of years ago became the mammals that we have now, including dogs, including us. So you have to be able to show that that is actually possible rather than gene pools containing certain limits. That is about all that I have just to open. So Austin, if you want to add anything to it, feel free.
Hey, how much time do we have left? Amy?
About seven minutes-ish.
Okay. Yeah, so like Nathan said, when you claim to be a science, you have to adhere to the scientific method. Of course, this is claiming a natural science. It claims to the natural world. So we have very specific parameters that natural science is. You have a naturally occurring observable phenomena. Evolution dies right there. Literally, you don't even have the first step of the scientific method. You don't have a naturally occurring observable phenomena, much less are you actually presupposing a cause, manipulating it, controlling the alternative variables, and then doing a scientific experiment to prove the cause of this alleged effect. I actually call evolution religion for atheists because that's what it is. And what I know for sure the rebuttal to Nathan will be is, well, you're conflating subjects. You're talking about abiogenesis. We're talking about evolution. Evolutionists use this tactic a lot. They try to compartmentalize the conversation to get a free pass on all the assumptions integrated into it. One of the examples of this is, like he said, abiogenesis. Now, say someone's a creationist and they want to invoke evolution. It makes it slightly more tenable, but it's still absurd. But another one so we know that truthfully, evolution was proposed as a way to explain life, the complexity within, without invoking intelligent design. And any good faith assessment of the conversation would acknowledge this, but it is a typical tactic to compartmentalize and say, oh, well, that's a different subject. Well, that's convenient because that is impossible, of course, to have organic life stem from inorganic matter. But to get out ahead of that, that will be the rebuttal. So we'll set that aside for a second. One of the assumptions that evolutionists like to ignore is the immensity of the timeline. You need billions of years at least. In fact, to even get it to statistically be possible, you have to actually assume infinite time and infinite possibilities. Of course, this does not exist, time being merely conceptual, but even in that conceptual linear program that is time, you don't have an infinite amount. And you then come up with fairy tales within that assumption built upon things like radiometric dating. Radiometric dating, you don't get to pretend that's not part of your claim. It objectively is. It's a requirement. It's a prerequisite. In fact, the debate should start there every single time until you can establish the validity and veracity of your timeline claims. You can't even pretend evolution is viable in theory. And evolutionists don't want to talk about this, but we're going to have to, because that's the first step. You need billions of years at least, which means you need to substantiate your claims that exists. And you cannot do that, of course. There's many reasons we get into it, but of course, the daughter-parent isotope relationship, the lack of contamination, a constant decay rate, and many other things. So we can gladly get into that. You know, that's the first part of it. And this is a religion. And so I think that it would be best that people would just accept evolution as a religion, disguising itself as science, masquerading as science. It doesn't adhere to the natural scientific method. So that's the fundamental part. Of course, the scientific or the statistical impossibility of nucleotides and proteins magically co-aligning themselves perfectly and mutations being beneficial consistently, and then addressing irreducible complexity, where the organisms would actually have to have coexisting parts and mechanisms that all work together in order to sustain life. And basically, when it comes to evolution, in summary, we're supposed to give them this magic wand where they can just say what ifs and make up science fiction stories on the go, on the run, as they make stuff up, and somehow that's science. But it is not. So we're going to have to hold your feet to the fire as it pertains to that. And we're going to be calling out the base assumptions in evolution. And once that happens, evolution dies.
Thank you so much for your opening statements. That was the skeptics. We're going to hand it over to the evolution side for their opening statement. The floor is yours.
Snake, you're on mute.
Are you able to make my picture bigger or should I just share screen?
If you would like to share screen, that may be easier.
Okay. All right, hopefully that's big enough. And I'm just start my own timer. Okay. So let's talk about the scientific method for a moment. The basic aim and method of science is to seek rules and principles that predict the operation of observable things. Evolution does this, creationism cannot. The proof is in the pudding. Evolution has the fruits, and creation does not. Additionally, evolution is cross-confirmed by nuclear physics, thermodynamics, chemistry, mathematics, archaeology, geology, paleontology, comparative genomics, and comparative anatomy, among others, as well as its numerous predictions of biological functions, fossil record predictions, and uses in technology and medicine. The theory produces real results. So this debate is titled Evolution on Trial. Well, evolution has been on trial many times. These are just a few of the famous cases where evolution has won every time and creationism has lost every time. Intelligent design and creationism were conclusively shown over and over to be completely unscientific in a court of law. This trend will continue tonight. The theory that all life is connected by way of evolution gives us predictions about the fossil record, predictions that the inconsistent, vague creationist hypothesis cannot, thus making evolution scientific by definition. That's how it works. There are zero reasonable objections to the fact that it's possible, and to propose that it predicts the record of animal populations by pure coincidence is pure dishonesty. Every single change necessary for macroevolutionary changes has been observed in real time and observed in the fossil record. We literally have a video of life's history. A video is a series of still images, and fossils are still images. There, we have this video literally recorded in stone. So maybe a low frame rate may have some gaps, ever shrinking gaps, but we do know the order and time scale of each frame of this video. If our estimates about radiometric dating are wrong by anything significant, then the oceans would boil off and the Earth's crust would be molten from radiometric decay, the friction of meteors, and plate tectonics. Obviously, this is not the case because we're not all on fire right now. This is known as the heat problem of creationism, and the best creationists have admitted there is no scientific solution to this problem. As for the mechanics of evolution itself, every single difference in the populations of life's history are already accounted for by observable microevolution that's both accepted by creationists because it's observable in living organisms today. We know that the size, shape, orientation, location, number, and chemical composition of bones, organs, and tissues can change within accepted biblical kinds, and creationists accept this so they can fit everything on the ark, even though they still don't fit. The amount of accepted variation within kinds is larger than the gaps between kinds. If the Bengal cat is related to the saber-toothed tiger, then why are they so much more similar to the genet cat, who's supposedly not related? Creationists don't give reasons for their ad hoc separations, especially when we add in more transitional forms that bridge those gaps. If the creationists insist transitional forms are their own kind, they shoot themselves in the foot, since that contains the same potential diversity, less overlapping. If the transitional forms are stuck in an existing kind, this increases the accepted diversity range within one and shrinks the gap between them even more, still resulting in a unified kind. This has been done in baraminology and studied. Baraminology is the study of created kinds, and it demonstrates the self-defeating problem of creationism. This has been studied. The baraminologists have been studied by the scientists, the real scientists. So baraminologists tried to find a hard criteria for kind. A baramin was declared when morphological distance of clusters had larger gaps between them than the size of the cluster itself. But as more fossils were discovered, the clusters got connected consistently and grew larger, and the definition of baramin collapsed, and they abandoned this method. So since the once creationist standards ended up proving evolution and connecting dinosaurs to birds particularly, they didn't like that, so they stopped using that method. They followed emotion and presupposition rather than the science. The amount of creationists accepted variation within kind, such as in coelacanth, is just as large as the difference between fishes that creationists consider not related. So if these bones can coordinate and grow so large and prominent and change skull structure and still be functional, And so can fins and hands. What's to stop fins from evolving into fingers? Absolutely nothing. We know the slight change to existing parts can give new functions to those parts. Another great example, all creationist orgs recognize Mesohippus as an early horse ancestor to the modern horse. How do they determine this? Through comparative anatomy. Even though the difference between the first horses and modern horses is actually larger than the difference between Mesohippus and the tapir. Only substantial difference is neck length. Fossil tapirs are also more similar to fossil horses than they are to the modern tapirs. Since they're derivatives, this makes sense. Again, the gaps between the kinds are smaller than the amount of change seen within the kind. So the root of the tree is more similar to other roots of trees than they are to their own branches. This is only true if evolution is true. The early and modern horses look similar, but they're actually further apart from each other than the tapirs are from the early horses. Not in least part because modern horses have one toe and early horses have three, like the tapirs. That's a lot of functional morphological evolution within horses, but a smaller amount of change between early horses and early tapirs isn't possible somehow. That gap is not bridgeable by evolution. So we have a double standard. If we're to avoid it, then the smaller anatomical differences should be considered evolved as well. Comparative anatomy is used inconsistently by creationists when the results show all kinds are connected by similar overlapping populations. For example, creation ministries claim to be able to identify fossil snakes from just jawbones or just vertebra alone. How would they know unless they're using comparative anatomy? Creationists accept that comparative anatomy and genetics prove relation with some kinds of animals, but arbitrarily decide that the same methods don't work on others. They have to contradict themselves and make arbitrary separations because they know they have to cram a ton of variation into some kinds just to have enough room on Noah's Ark, but they don't want us to be apes. Creationists creationists attempt to create genetic barriers, and that always fails, like DNA barcoding. They'll just pick arbitrary thresholds and split up humans and apes. But what happens is now all the cats aren't in the same kind anymore, and each canine is in a different kind. And the same thing happens to others. So, whoops, that overloads Noah's Ark. If we increase the threshold to include all cats of the same kind, that gets humans and apes in the same kind. So there's no standard that evolution skeptics can ever propose that doesn't debunk their own necessary entailments. They can't tell us how they know things are related or not. Could this be the same kind of animal? They're almost identical. Could these be the same kind? All that separates them is slight proportion differences of the same bones in the same locations, something we know happens all the time. Same method we use to know elephants are all related. So could the upper animal have elongated its tail and shrunk its legs? Yes, this is creationist accepted diversity. This is possible. Every difference here is covered by observed creationists accepted diversity within kind, and yet creationists will dishonestly attempt to compare only those far away from each other in taxonomy, rather than include the transitions between. We have tons of examples of half-evolved traits, like half-evolved fangs. Fully evolved fangs follow the same developmental pattern found in fossils, which is that they indent and fold instead of being created with just a hollow tube through it. They actually fold from a non-fang. We've observed in real time the macroevolution of a new kind of organism. Single cellular algae and yeast of different species and different methods have been observed to independently evolve multicellular bodies, not random clumpings of individuals coming together. This is the beginning of tissue differentiation, proving that definitively that the new functional information can evolve without any intelligent design simply by modifying existing genes. Organisms don't suddenly sprout wings, they modify them from existing structures. It's a major misconception about evolution. Number two being that it's undirected, it's not, the environment directs evolution. Plants are amazing examples of evolution too. All these plants can crossbreed with each other and graft onto each other, meaning they're related. We have plants with drastically different body plans and internal chemistry, like these, yet we know they're related. Same with mustard flowers that evolved into broccolis and other plants, which can also be grafted together or crossbred. They're modifications of existing structures, yet they have different structures by emphasizing different traits. And that's what we're talking about today, is evolution, which is not origin of life, but origin of species and change of life. Everyone knows that we're not here to talk about abiogenesis, Nathan. Also, the fractal patternnicity of Romanesco broccoli is yet another beautiful and incontrovertible example of functional information evolving without any intelligent design. So ERVs prove that it's a mathematical genetic certainty that evolution happened. These are viral elements that inserted randomly into host DNA. They get inherited if they infect the right cells. There are thousands of these infections, and given random nature, all similarities for these highly variable regions are only possible through evolution. They connect all of mammalia. We share hundreds of these with chimps, and that's just one virus group that's on screen. Over 200 of them, some of them which belong to non-human species that in their wild form do not infect humans. They were acquired by non-human ancestors. This number here is how likely it is that this happened by chance. That's more than 83 Googles, each of which is followed by 100 zeros. There isn't even a word for a number that large. 20 times larger than the particles in the universe, or than the number of particles in the universe. There are lab experiments showing that ERVs can be restored to active viruses, proving they're viruses, not divine. If anything, the creator could and should easily use these to disprove common ancestry, yet we see precisely what we expect with evolution. Endosymbiosis is evidence of evolution because they are invasive cells that have a different form of DNA. Mitochondria are. This has been observed to happen in nature and in the lab. So that's been tested. And there's no reason for a creator to do it like this, because there are animals that don't have mitochondria with their own bacterial DNA. The fact is that evolution makes novel predictions, such as Archaeopteryx and Tiktaalik, and many more, and explains them mechanistically. Thus, it is science by definition. The only move that remains for the evolution skeptic is to assert that reading an ancient religious tome is a better scientific method. If you use this method of assuming absolute certainty of some book, you'll categorically never be able to know if it is wrong, just a blind assumption. We know creationists accept that the size, proportions, shape, orientation, location, number, function, and chemical composition of bones, as well as muscles, organs, and tissues, can change within accepted biblical kinds, and creationists accept this, but they can't put them together. This somehow magically stops at some point that they don't like. So basically, what we went over is these 4 points. All necessary changes are proven to be possible. Only small anatomical gaps exist, explainable by what's observed and predicted by evolution. There's a presence of genetic and anatomical features only possible through evolution, and evolution can predict the natural world. All of this evidence backs evolution. What backs the alternative? Absolutely nothing. No ability to define the terms. No evidence. The alternative isn't scientifically possible due to the heat problem, and all rests on God of the gaps fallacy. So compare the two weights of evidence. All they can do is just assert a ridiculously high bar of evidence, so that unless we have a video evidence of every cherry-picked step of evolution, we can't be confident in it at all. So that is my presentation.
Thank you so very much. Snake was right. I do have to say it was 12 minutes split, and so what I'm just going to do is that however long CP that you talk for, I am just going to have a counter, and we're just going to give that to the other side, and then we're just going to go into the opposition, or to the conversation. But CP, right over to you.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just try to keep this extremely brief, just sort of touching on like very, very layman's terms, everything wrong with the very first argument. So basically, you claimed that the only thing we can ever observe is that non-life stays not a life. What the fuck? If you simply just look at dogs, you can see evolution within years. You can see crossbreeding to very specifically make a type of dog that wasn't there before. Like a dog that you would see on the street is nothing to do with a wolf, and that is immediate evolution. We do not need carbon dating. We do not need millions and millions of years to see this. The food that you are eating in the fridge is literally evolution. It's been genetically modified to be a certain way. You can possibly argue that this is humans doing it, but they're doing it via natural means in a much quicker rate, showing that it can happen within the natural world. You also claim that evolution is religion for atheists? No, because evolution is constantly changing and adapting via scientific evidence that we receive. And you claim that believing in evolution therefore excludes you from believing anything else. Honey, you can believe whatever the fuck you want. No one's telling you not to believe in God if you want to believe in evolution. That's freedom of choice. The only difference between evolution and religion is we're not damning you to hell if you don't believe in us. That's something else. So Um, you don't need billions of years to see evolution. You can literally see evolution in your refrigerator, and I just want to keep it brief. So that's all I got to say.
Woohoo! That works out. So basically, guys, I'll give you a minute, and then it's right back into the open back and forth. Thank you, both of you, all of you.
Nathan, let me take the minute and then I'll just let you talk at first. I just gotta say, like, you guys are saying contradictory things. And then Snake's entire presentation was about creationism. Like literally the entire thing. Everything he said. God, 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 God. I hate God. Creationism, creationism, creationism. But that's not what the debate's about. It's this evolution on trial, a positive claim of evolution. It has nothing to do with creationism. And then your own partner then says it has nothing to do with whether or not you believe in creationism. But Snake's entire presentation was about creationism, which goes to prove what I said in my opener, which was that is the actual motivation for evolutionary assumptions is to avoid intelligent design. And you do need billions of years. And the most important thing they won't get addressed is adaptation. I'm not even going to concede that because that's not real, because in order for something to quote unquote adapt to its environment, it already has the information and ability to do that within it ingrained, which means there is no external information introduced to give you adaptation, nor can you jump over to change a species.
And all right, with that, well, it's all to the entire floor. The open conversation begins.
So Witsit, why did you think that my whole presentation was just about God? Did everything with the scientific evidence and the papers, did you think that was all about God too?
Well, everything you were saying was about how creationism
No, it
can't
wasn't.
explain it.
So you
Literally
clearly
every
didn't-
slide.
you
Literally
clearly
every
didn't
slide.
pay
I didn't
attention to
understand what
anything.
Snake was talking about.
I
Snake
had
didn't
up-
understand it.
I had up scientific papers for every single claim that I made.
Why were you talking about God?
I
though?
talked about how we can observe in real time genetic and morphological changes. Did that go over your head?
No. I'm just saying, like, why were you talking about creationism so much?
Because
if
you're a
it's unrelated?
creationist,
Okay, but that's not what
and that's
debate's about, I thought.
that's the challenge to evolution.
So we
Only
can
creationists-
address
I
Snake
Only
here.
also-
creationists challenge evolution.
Yeah, and doesn't the fact that I have a different perspective actually disprove your point that evolution and religion are mutually exclusive? You said
This
that the fact
proves
that
your
I
partner's point.
but me and my partner are not the same person.
Right,
point-
Which also shows evolution because genetically we
Yeah,
are quite
What
different.
point?
guys should debate
what
then,
point
I
is,
guess.
is contradictory
Here,
between us?
let's address some of what Snake was saying here. So I do think that a lot of what Snake was saying, like showing these examples of animals being able to do different things with their limbs, animals are able to figure things out. They're smart. They're trying to work with their environment. So if a fish has fins, it can still try to do some things with those fins, but to show them to turn into something like an arm, which has a completely different function, is, I don't think, something that we have ever observed. But we can observe these micro Austin, you dismissed it, but like these variations, these adaptations, these things are able to become more accustomed to their environment to give them a better chance of survival, especially animals where survival is pretty much one of the only things on their minds. Snake, you did mention that there are predictions that are able to be made with evolution. I would like to ask you about that because, say, for example, one of the things that you're able to predict, if you were going to take, for example, this is about evolution, but I think just about everybody knows creation is kind of the main opponent of evolution in our modern world. And so a prediction of creation would be something like, say you grow peaches. And so you're going to be able to say, okay, I'm going to plant these peaches and they're going to produce peach trees every single time. So a creationist could predict that, and that they're going to be able to get those peaches. And this is something that an industry would rely on. Like if you were a peach farmer, you're going to want to have peaches. You're not going to want to have pine cones pop off of those trees. Whereas evolution is self-admitted to be blind, random, and misguided. It is not able to make a prediction about what a future species would arise.
Okay.
And before I'll let you answer that, but I do want to quickly address this thing with species. So there is something with like speciation.
Well, this is the third point now that you're on.
Okay, go for it then. Then I'll
Okay.
get back to it.
So fish fins as legs. There are fish that use their limbs as legs. I showed one that had literally an elbow joint walking on the bottom of the ocean. And we know that the shape and orientation of their bones can change. I also put up a paper studying catfish where members of the same species would have wildly different leg fin bones. And so this isn't even comparing different species. It's they all have different shapes of their fin bones, and they're all functional. And we know that their muscles and their bone structure can change. So why? And we know that they can walk on land.
So
Clarify, your argument is that anatomical differences prove evolution.
That's part of the evidence.
Well, so
Wow.
with
that makes
with
it
the fish that you
possible.
show-
Yes.
With the fish that you show, so like we have you and I have different jaw structures, and so our
Yeah.
bones would look different, but we are still the same species. And you can have especially because of mutations add up throughout time. So as these mutations add up, you might get legs that start to grow in a little bit different position. They might dangle a little more straight down or a little further back. And whatever, if one of those fish can swim faster than the other, they're going to be at a little bit more of a competitive advantage to get food.
Right. So where's the limit of that? Can a like a wolf-like animal that swims a lot lose its hair and its hind limbs and become more like a whale or a seal?
Well, I mean, why do you have evidence of like something like that actually happening, or is it just a fairy tale? Because this
Yes.
is wait, this is the point that always gets
Okay,
Yes.
I want to
one
ask,
thing.
will you concede that, for example, cancer is genetic? Like if your parents have cancer, you are more likely to have cancer.
No,
No?
I've actually learned some things in my nutritional studies that you can actually affect your genes with the nutrition that you eat. So people who may get cancer because it's in their family lineage, they tend to be eating the same things as their parents, as their grandparents, and so they can get these cancers. But people who they've done studies with people who eat plants, and within 3 months, 500 genes switch. Good genes turn on, bad genes turn off, and these are able to have cancer preventative effects. So it might have something to do with the environment. That's a nutritional component, not to mention like carcinogens that might be.
Yeah.
from,
All right, Pitch.
But that's also genetic.
Show the evidence.
wait,
Show
this is
the
what's funny.
evidence.
It's we don't even
Cancer
understand
is-
cancer, and carcinogenic infection is not understood at all. And actually, there's very many studies that show that it's actually parasitic in nature. So, like, to
Alright, I'm
claims founded
calling for-
upon carcinogenic infection is insane, dude. It doesn't make any sense. I just
cancer
want to know,
is
can someone
mutation.
address what I
I'm
want to know?
literally calling for your evidence. Show me evidence that if I eat a bunch of kale, I'm not going to get breast cancer, despite the fact that I've got HER2 genetics and an 80% likelihood of getting it. Can you have
Say
a card
this
for
is a
that?
complete.
Yeah,
This
do
is
you
a
know what
you're asking how to
oncogenes
cure
are?
All right, show me the
cancer.
card.
We'll
Send
talk-
it in
we'll
the
talk.
chat. Show it.
Okay,
Do
I'm
you know
sure
what
you could, but
oncogenes
there's
are?
there's many examples of such a thing, but
Okay.
it's a diversion. You tried to claim that cancer was genetically passed down. That's a cool story, but that isn't reality. And this is the main thing that evolutionists people always concede this to evolutionists, but I'm not. Okay, what they do is they say microevolution and adaptation. That's what creationists concede. But this is a misnomer, because in reality, if there is like say the birds with the beaks, right? They already had the information within them to change or adapt.
That's
But
how
for
evolution works.
to be wait. For
Congratulations, you figured
evolution
it
to be
out.
true, you need an external introduction of additional information.
No,
You don't get
Why?
adaptation.
that's not how
Why?
evolution works. You
It
don't know
is.
what you're talking about.
Yeah,
do
so
not
think-
I
get-
have no idea
we
what
don't
you're
get infected by genetic engineering. That's not how evolution
Infected?
Well,
Who said the
works.
word
Yeah,
infected?
you said an external addition of new information.
That's
That's
right.
literally
You don't understand.
nothing to
That's
do with
literally-
That
anything
means that it was
talked
all
about.
it already contained the information necessary to change.
Right,
So where
evolution
did
is
it get that
change.
information? Where did
Evolution
they get
is
the
change from their parents. Evolution is change of existing traits. So your parents had an
What
arm.
about ERVs?
You have an arm too.
where
So
did they get the
to address-
information, Snake?
To address from their parents, as I just said, you need to.
ERVs would be
Okay, so as
internal,
a court,
that becomes
so
internal.
addressing your cancer claims, there are genes called oncogenes, which are known to cause cancer or to suppress cancer. And if you have it, you have a higher rate of cancer. And those ERVs that I mentioned will sometimes interrupt genes that will cause cancer. So there are certain genes that if they're turned off, we know this is the mechanism of cancer. If your cell doesn't have a certain gene or has genetic damage to that gene, then it will get cancer. It can't die
You
off.
don't understand cancer.
So
that's
you
patently
don't
false.
understand
I haven't
anything
seen
about
any
cancer.
evidence that if we eat a
You
bunch
don't.
of kale, we're not going to get cancer.
If you know
No,
exactly
you
what
don't.
cancer is, why
told
don't you
me
cure
put
it?
that in the chat. I haven't seen a single card.
I just want to say though,
How do you
Snake
think?
intentionally,
so you
Snake
think that
intentionally didn't let me.
cancer
Wait,
just
real fast.
happens?
Real fast,
no,
real fast.
absolutely not.
Yeah, you intentionally
You told me
skated
I have
past
no
the
idea what
rebuttal of your.
cancer is.
You said they get it from
How
the
does
parent.
cancer work?
Okay,
How
you
does
said that they
cancer
get
work?
real fast, one at a time.
Why are you
Snake.
so? I still have to address many points that you guys brought
Okay,
up.
fair enough. But can I just address? You said that they get the additional information from their parents. Okay, so you don't seem to understand your own position, which was very abundantly clear when you read your screens off. But my point is that you're saying the information's already present. So where did it come from if the idea is that there's billions of years of an evolutionary process where information is additional to the original state? You don't
Your
understand
mommy
your
and
claim,
your
my brother.
daddy had sex, and their genes mutated, and you got those genes.
Where'd they get the
and they
information, Snake?
recombined.
Where did
from
the
their
additional
parents?
information come
You
from?
do pick up mutations, and the more mutations you have, the more likely you are to develop certain cancers as well. Like cancer is a mutation. You have things in your genes that go
Right.
haywire.
Yeah,
I
this
know,
honestly
Nate-
sounds
no,
like you're
Witsit doesn't
conceding
understand
exactly
this.
what we're saying. So
No, you don't understand. The point is that you claim that they have additional information to be able to adapt. What it shows whenever something adapts to its environment is it was intrinsically ingrained with that informative ability to change relative to the environment. So when you show me something that's the same species changing, that doesn't prove anything other than intelligent design. That's what
Like
it
All right,
proves.
for example,
I did.
ask you
dogs. You
something.
can breed dogs that are.
All right, let me ask you something, Whitsit. Can you explain in your own words for the audience how you understand the concept of natural selection? Because I'm curious how you define it in your own understanding. So to you, what does natural selection mean?
I don't know. It's not my claim. You tell me there's 15 different versions.
But you're putting
when
it on
hear
trial
this
and you have
word,
no
what
idea
do
what
you
you're
think
talking
we're
about.
arguing?
There's 15 different versions.
So what do you think it means?
Well,
It's
And-
in a very rudimentary sense. It's what we all think it means, which is that
He
the
doesn't know.
survival of the fittest. That's it. Survival of the fittest. A 5-year-old can understand your claim. It's not that it's complex. It's overly complicated because there's no evidence.
and
That
I
is
think
the 5-year-old
that's something
version of it.
That's what it
something
is.
big with what
No.
Austin is saying here is you have these limits. So you're in different kinds will have a gene pool, and you're allowed to go within this gene pool and experience these different variations. Maybe if you're a dog, if you have thicker hair and you go or thicker fur and you go to a warmer place, you're going to develop thinner fur. You select for dogs if you're breeding that have thinner fur, and dogs can get longer legs or shorter legs. But there are limits within this gene.
Yeah. What are the limits?
It's God's limits.
What are the
You're
limits?
laughing. I thought you were a creationist.
Is it
That's weird.
limited? Is it limited?
Why do you think it's
to-
a creation?
Yeah,
That's what he
each
said.
Each gene pool has a limitation. You are
Yeah.
not.
What is
allowed
that
to-
limit? Is the limit can a land mammal not evolve into a whale, and why not?
Wait.
Because
You're making the
it
positive
doesn't
claim that it
have-
can.
It doesn't have the ability to develop aquatic required
Why not?
fins like gills.
Whoa, do I need to break down
Whales
basic
don't have
logic?
gills.
Let me
Whales
break
don't
down
have
basic
gills.
logic. Okay,
We're in the middle of a conversation here.
You're reversing the burden of proof. Reversal of burden of proof fallacy.
I will say
No,
one at a
it's not.
time, sending love to all.
It's textbook shifting the burden of proof.
No, it's not.
Guys, we don't want
You're
the
you
moderators
said that
to
there's a
cut
limit.
off Party, so
Okay, go ahead. I mean, just reverse the burden of proof when you're on trial.
You said
Go
there's a
ahead.
limit, so that's your burden of proof.
That's what evidence shows us. That's what we have available.
No, it's not.
You're making additional claims.
There is no evidence that shows that a land mammal cannot lose its hair and have its legs.
Can you prove Santa does
disappear.
not exist?
And evolution has predicted the fossils that would be there if that happened. So
Well,
we
there-
have land mammals that look like aquatic land mammals, that look like aquatic land mammals with bigger feet, that look like aquatic land mammals that have bigger front feet and smaller hind legs and a bigger tail. So that's whale evolution, and it's in the right time period, and it's a transitional form, and it was predicted by the theory of evolution. That's why it's science, and that's why you will fail all tonight.
Great one. You can go, Nathan. I was. You can go.
Yeah,
ahead.
you have no response.
Yes, I do.
you
You're
have-
shifting the burden of proof. This is
I just gave
seven-year-old
the you
an
can't
immediate
listen.
interruption.
Okay, we're
So
done
I-
with you.
about-
You don't listen. I just told you.
So I have
that
no
you made-
response,
I
but you
just
had to
told
interrupt
you-
me.
I just told you that you made the claim about the
You're
limit,
emotional,
and then I
man.
gave you the evidence for my claim. Then you just went back and did your stupid first claim, even though I already
I was
debunked
3
it.
words in, and you said I have no
So-
response, and then I was 3 words in, and you interrupt me.
You stopped
what do you-
talking.
Watch
No.
out,
Alright,
Snake.
I'm
Witsit's calling you hysterical.
I
I'm
know.
gonna
He needs
pull
to be
both of
handled
you-
like a little.
There
baby
are a lot
sometimes.
of different there's variation within species, and there were a lot of created kinds. There were a lot of variation within these species, variation within these kinds. So we are able to find fossils that, because of how glorious our maker's creative ability is, we can find fossils that pretty much can line up how we would like to. That is something that I do not disagree with. I don't disagree that
But they
you can
were-
get a mudfish that has the ability to breathe in multiple domains. It's a creative, like, here's a marvel of creation when you get an amazing feat within a creature.
Now I'm
They're not
curious,
lined
like
up.
according to your worldview, I'm
This is your
genuinely
worldview
kinda
on trial.
curious. No. I'm trying to see where you're coming from so I can understand it. So
Absolutely.
when you hear all of this evidence of all of these fossils that we have uncovered, I'm just kind of curious, according to your worldview, how do you explain it? Do you think that they are conspiracy theories or fakes, or do you think that they are basically put there by God? Like, I'm just kind of curious how you account for this evidence and still maintain your worldview.
Yeah, there are a lot of various species, and maybe you are a fish that has your legs more straight down, or maybe they're a little more angled back. And so one thing with creation is there's a post-fall, and then there's a post-flood where you get an environmental difference, and some of these fossils might not have been able to handle a shift going on during a flood or before the fall. And so they are not able to make it into this world where we are now. And so we don't have these species living among us. They were living with us in the past, but right now they are not. And maybe having your legs tilted back a little bit, you were a little too slow to be able to escape the flood or anything like that.
There's all but it's religious and unfounded if you make that claim, Nathan. But they can make up stories of the past, and I do want to break this down. Okay, this is evolution on trial. It's a positive claim. So you're showing anatomical structural differences in bones and saying that, therefore, things go from one species to another if you make up stories, and then you're granted the assumption of billions of years. You have the positive claim. Snake repeatedly said, show me that isn't true. Show me that can't happen. That is incredibly illogical. You can't prove that Santa doesn't exist. You don't prove negatives. You're making the positive claim, and you're wanting us to grant billions of years and replace your assumptions. That's not how logic works.
You
Where you're
claimed
coming from, but what I want to say
hold
in
on.
terms of can I respond to that real quick? And then, just real quick. So I just want to respond with where I'm coming from with this. So we have presented a plethora of evidence because our job is to prove our claim. So I understand where you're coming from with this. Now, your job in order to counteract this evidence is to either present counter evidence that is more credible and more believable, or to show that our evidence is incredible. And I'm giving you the opportunity right now to challenge our evidence. And what I'm hearing from Pitch is interesting in that basically they believe that there's post-flood and pre-flood. And I'd like to challenge that by asking, if that was true, then how come we don't have only two clear, distinct fossil records of post-flood and pre-flood, but rather post-flood and pre-flood, but rather more of a continuous spectrum? So that is where I'm going with this. So I'm inviting you to win this debate by challenging our evidence and proving it's not legitimate, or providing stronger evidence. This is where I'm coming from. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I will get to, I'll try to run through this pretty quick here to just go with what Austin had said real quick about the trial, which, Snake, you had brought up trials in the past. That is one thing, that creation is a belief, a faith admitted up front and not being asked to be taught in science. So kind of like what I had mentioned in the beginning is, when you are claiming to be a science rather than a belief on origin.
Real quick, those trials were asking for creation to be taught as science.
And that's why I disagree with those. A creationist should not be advocating for creation to be taught in science, because origin would be so hard to pin down because none of us are there. There's a lot of inference that goes into a lot of this. And so when you bring up something like bone structures or the layouts of certain species of animals, these are both explainable by either common designer or common ancestor. The result is kind of the same in that it is common. And so one of the things that you would have to do for evolution is, if you wanted to oust creation as a competing belief in origin, you would have to show an exclusive worldview claim that would be something like, if a dog or if animal cells had a common ancestor with plant cells, you need to be able to show that there is a split. With the layering, why we get the layers the way that we do is because when water is moving, it is able to sort certain, it's called, I think, hydrological sorting. So there's a sorting that goes on with particles, and then they layer out in a certain way. And with the flood, you not only have waters coming from above, but also from beneath, would be a flood interpretation. So this would give you these layers that sort over time. And this would be kind of catastrophism, but there is something called polystrata vertical petrified trees, which are trees that run vertically through multiple millions of layers of coal seams according to evolution. And these trees actually even end up going through multiple coal seams, and you're getting all of these layers. Now, evolution and people that I have talked to will actually attribute this phenomenon to a flood. So evolution is laying claim to a flood being able to create these layers. So that is, I think, when a lot of what could be talked about, like the layers of a rock bed or homologous structures, these things are, we make a lot of inference, and we have to try to line things up to our narrative. So comparing humans to bonobos or chimpanzees, you can say, okay, we have 98%, but maybe that's only if you're looking at cytochrome C and not really like cytochrome B. And I think the base pairs for chimpanzee and human are like, because the traditional school of thought is 96% similar humans to chimps or bonobos. But I think if you look at the base pairs, the total number of base pairs is like 3 billion to 3.4 billion. So right there off the bat, if every base pair of the 3 billion was a match, you're already at a 12% difference just in length of the gene code. So, but then again, monkeys share a lot, primates share a lot of similar physiology to us. Our anatomy is very similar to them. So it wouldn't make sense for a creation model account to make to explain something as humans would be entirely different from chimpanzees or anything like that, because we do share a lot more with them than to say a fish. So both models have to make these claims of explanation. So,
right. So to address some of the stuff you just said, but I want to address some other things you said earlier. I'll try and get through it. But so similar physiology does not mean similar genes at all. So rats and mice, far more different from each other than humans are to chimps. So if having a similar morphology, rats and mice look more similar to each other than we do to chimps, but their genetics are further apart. So there's this argument that similar genetics are only there just because we occupy similar spaces in the ecological niches or something like that. That's just not borne out by the evidence. The polystrate trees never go through anything that's millions of years apart. It's only fast forming layers. And yes, floods do occur in the standard model, because floods occur. It's just not a global flood. So going back now to the prediction thing, you said that creation would predict that peaches produce peaches. Well, everyone would predict that. Evolution would predict that as well. And evolution / standard model would predict that there are floods too. So it has to be a novel prediction that the competitors and everything else isn't going to make. So evolution has exclusive predictions.
I would say evolution does not predict peaches would become peaches. If we were having this discussion 65 million years ago when we were all rats, the contention would be that we don't say that rats would become non-rats, but eventually you get rats that become dogs and you get rats that become monkeys, and you always get these same things producing these same things. But you do have, what's that?
Well, we have chihuahuas from non-chihuahuas, don't we?
Wait, but didn't you just debunk
And
your own?
peaches.
claim though? You said that rats and mice, although they're similar in appearance, they're genetically much different. And your entire presentation was about anatomical similarity of appearance.
No, because we can track that they're different genetics, and we can track that they are from different basal fossils.
How do you track
So
genetics
they-
from fossils?
Rats? No, that's not what I said. You can't. You need to do something about your hearing.
So appearance doesn't
so
support your point. I
rats
got it.
and mice are both descended from mammals that split very early in the evolutionary line. That's why they're genetically different.
Well, you just said, my
We
point is you
also
said that even
have,
though things look the same, they can be genetically significantly different. And your
Mhm.
entire presentation was showing bones that you think look pretty much the same.
Yeah, that's not the only criteria.
So you just dismissed 90% of your own presentation.
No, because that's not the
You
only
did.
criteria if you actually paid attention.
Violation of the
So,
law of non-contradiction.
I think they just didn't really understand your presentation.
There you go, ad hom. That'll work.
No, you're
Okay, so
demonstrably not
let's just make
understanding
this very, very simple. That's a banana, right? That's what a natural banana looks like. Is that the banana that you could get from a grocery store?
No.
That is totally
I work in a
irrelevant to what I
grocery
just
store, no.
said.
How is that irrelevant when we can literally genetically engineer a banana to not have seeds?
That requires intelligent design and it's a non sequitur. Snake
Artificial
just
selection.
And
said
by the
that
way-
rats and wait, just to clarify for the audience, Snake rebutted Nathan by saying that rats and mice look the same, but they're genetically much different. Okay. Then he brought up chimps and humans, right? Saying that we're much more similar genetically. His entire fossil record argument is about the aesthetic similarities of fossils.
No, it's
So-
not.
It is.
No, it's not. You're a liar.
So so you agree that we can
Is
throw
there
out
a
all
certain
evidence
word
about
maybe that
fossils.
starts with P
No.
and ends in diction?
Do
That
you agree
you're
that we can
leaving
throw out
here?
all fossil records just because they look
Are
the
you-
same?
Are you maybe leaving that word out?
Is the word
Wait.
you're talking about prediction?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah, but hey, can we
But
agree to
going
throw
back
out
to
all the
peaches-
fossil? Hey,
Going
we
back to
agree.
peaches, peaches are also not
Ah.
originally peaches. They come from a
That's
plant
yeah.
that wasn't a peach, and they're related to cherries, almonds, plums.
They're
Exactly.
related. Do you know how complex DNA is, man? Like 4%
Well,
difference
God
is
of the
a
gaps argument.
huge
Complex,
amount.
therefore God.
Plants are
That's a
able
fallacy.
to diversify into a lot. Like kale is able to become Brussels sprouts and cauliflower. Depending on what parts of the gene code you choose to grow, to express, to allow more expression, you're
Yeah.
going to be able to get variation in the appearance of what that gene
Yeah.
code.
So you both
Yeah.
we've presented
that's within the
evidence,
gene code.
or you guys accept natural variation. So
There-
and then
absolutely
both of you
variation is very,
right.
very yes.
right. So but then both of you made the positive claim that there is a limit. I haven't heard what that limit is.
Yeah.
So there's
Okay.
evidence of
Domain limit.
variation,
I'll say
But-
domain limit.
but we've also seen that there's more variation within the kinds than there are between the kinds that you don't want to be related. So how come
supports our
there's so
point.
much? How come there's so much variation? But it
supports
stops at
our
this
point.
arbitrary point
Maybe-
to things that are so similar
So
that
what
this
I'm
amount of
saying
variation
is
already
certain
gene
covers
pools
it.
could be stronger than others and able to have a wider bandwidth of expression versus other gene pools that might have suffered more mutation as time has gone on. So they might not be able to diversify as much. But that is, I think.
Well, what I mean is like the tapir and the fossil horse skeletons were virtually identical.
You mean
Is there
appearance-wise?
anything that would prevent them from having a common ancestor
You mean when you
that
say
they
identical,
diverged from?
you mean they look the same?
Uh-huh.
I thought that didn't matter.
I didn't say that. Try to keep up.
So they can be drastically
If you
different and look the
have-
same.
So if you have like you can have a person that is born with like an extra finger or something, like you can get mutations where, or not extra finger, you can be born with a loss of a finger, you can lose information, so you could
But
lose your
sticking
way
with the
down.
horse example,
Yeah.
there's the horse kind that creationist organizations accept. So we have the early horses that have three
Creationists do
toes.
struggle with kind.
I don't know if-
defining kind, I'm just saying.
I don't know if you accept that the horse kind or not, but most creationist organizations, all of them that I'm aware of, do. that evolved from 3-toed horses to 1-toed horses, but they say that the taper can't have been related to the early horse, and they don't give a reason. Even though there's much less
Horses being different.
there's much less evolution that needs to happen for those early fossil taper and fossil horses than there is between the early fossil horse and the modern horse.
Horses being horses and being a little bit of different types of horses.
Okay, so you don't get the question.
So
All
what
right.
It doesn't
I
support your
wanna know
point.
from the opponents is you say that there can be moderate genetic mutations and moderate changes, but there is a limit. Please define this limit and prove why this is the limit.
So one hard limit I'll put, because there can be some things with trying to pin down a kind, like a rat and a mouse. They look similar, but they have a more different gene code. So I'll just give a wider, more of kind of a softball pitch, is that I would say domain change would be a limit. That creation claims that evolution says there's a merger. So this would be a limit to the gene pool. Say, and I don't believe this, but say creation said all mammals came from one mammal. Okay, evolution is claiming that all mammals and all plants came from one simpler species beforehand. So now if the limit is set to domain, you need to show where a plant cell and an animal cell can be traced back to one population, or show one population artificially select and breed, and show that as the population is spreading, show where suddenly you cross a boundary where you have a plant population over here and an animal population over here. I'll put the limit at domain. So it's very wide, but it is claimed by macroevolution and the common ancestor hypothesis or philosophy.
Will you respond specifically, please?
And before you do respond, I will say we are at the halfway mark for the open conversation. I'm enjoying the debate and the back and forth. Please keep it on sending in those questions and super chats to me at Amy Newman. And of course, if you like the show, please don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and share with that person that you're in a debate with. Once again, ladies and gents, the floor is right back over to you.
All right. So you mentioned domain change. So like I was trying to say, the base of each domain of each different domain are actually more similar to each other than they are to the branches that come off of that domain that exists today.
I would agree. A common designer would have similarities. A plant should have a similar genetic code to us, because if we're going to extract nutrition from a plant, it should be recognizable to our body. I would just like to see the split in the population where one becomes plant and one becomes animal.
Yeah, will you guys address that specifically, please?
So basically, you're putting the burden of proof that we need to prove a plant becomes an animal, and if
Animal and plant.
besides that,
prove
nothing
it's-
quantifies as evolution. So if we can potentially show that a fish becomes a human, that's not considered evolution by your standards.
No, your claim is that plants can turn into animals.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you've set the limit. You've said in your definitions, and I'm holding you accountable to this, that basically genetics can modify, and it's totally fine. It's still not evolution unless a plant becomes an animal.
That's
so
just
basically,
one of the
you're
limits.
trying
A plant has
to
to share
put an
ancestry
umbrella
with the
over
animal.
all other modifications that might happen over time, saying it's not technically evolution. And I think, first of all, that we can show that plants can evolve into animals, but that your definitions are extremely off base and do not promote a fair and equitable debate, because you're
Can you show it?
encompassing.
We can show it's possible.
Evolution is the one claiming to be taught in science, and that is an empirical science. So you should be able to show these claims through demonstration, in which we can then observe and then interpret the observation and make our conclusions.
But
Right,
this
like-
is
like let-
the basic competitiveness of debate is set on fair and reasonable definitions. And so you're trying to absorb the idea of, for example, a single-celled organism evolving into a fish,
Is
evolving into
evolution
a
a
human
science?
being as not evolution.
Is evolution a science?
I feel like you're not hearing me at all.
Yes.
Because I'm
But it
talking
doesn't-
about the terms of a debate, and
evolution
you're
is a
not
science.
interacting with me on a
It's-
debater's level.
You're right.
Oh,
on
It
that
is a science. However, just
Well,
because there are holes in a
Go back to
science
CP
doesn't
and then
mean it's not a science.
we'll get to the science. I just wanted to make sure that we have an understanding that evolution is considered science. So I'm sorry, CP, can you repeat that one more time?
So I think that what I'm trying to do is set the terms and burden of proof for the debate. Now, a debate needs to be reconciled with mutual burdens of proof that are fair and reasonable for both sides. You have set the definition that evolution must be a plant transitioning to an animal, and therefore all other mutations and all other sort of changes that happen if this not plant to an animal are not evolution, but therefore intelligent design. And I'm saying that that is an unreasonable burden of proof and definition that is not really what the core heart of this debate is discussing.
So you just
However, I
avoided
still
it.
think we can meet this burden of proof despite that. That
Are-
is my main point. See,
Are you-
sorry,
Why haven't you done
asking-
it yet?
Are you asking for evolution to be taught as a theory or as a philosophy or as a science?
I think you're not really hearing
Well,
what
if I was going to advocate for creation, I would say teach it in philosophy. I wouldn't ask that creation be taught in science. So I don't need to demonstrate that an invisible creator can make something out of the water. I don't need to
Would you-
demonstrate that because I'm not making a scientific claim. If you are going to claim scientifically, which is no longer an even fair foot back and forth in a philosophical debate, if you are going to talk about how it is a science and your claim is that scientifically plants, animals, mushrooms, protists all go back to one common ancestor, the LUCA, the last universal common ancestor, you need to show that there can be a division in offspring. Say that LUCA had 3 kids, and then several kids and then each 20 go one way towards mushrooms, 20 go the other way towards plant, 20 go the other way towards animal. You need to show that these changes can happen on a domain level. And if you say that you can show this, I would love to see this scientifically shown, because it would really go a long way for what I'm trying to do for schools.
So if we can
Yeah.
demonstrate this, will you agree to see the debate as a win to us in this case?
No, just show
Hold
it.
on.
So you need to establish a burden of what we need to do to prove, to win or lose. And I'm talking from the perspective of a debate coach. So what is
Oh,
your
you
burden?
want me to
to prove?
cover all of it?
Ancestor
I'll cover
giving
all of
way
it. I'll
to
cover all of it.
plants.
What you need
So
to
you need to
do.
set fair and reasonable burdens.
Okay, I got you.
Tell them
I
that
got you.
we'll do it. We'll
Okay.
win. We'll go home.
Okay. What you need to do is, since you're making natural science claims, scientific claims about the
Well-
natural world, you need to adhere to the scientific method and scientific experimentation within natural science, which is a naturally occurring observable phenomena, which you claim a change of species. You can't even do that part. Then you need to experimentally validate the claim. Secondly, you need to show that the timeline that you require for your entire belief system to even be proposed in the first place can be scientifically verified without a plethora of assumptions. So radiometric dating needs to be verified scientifically. You then need to show, for example, one of the many things you need to show is what Nathan just explained to you, that you can have all these domain differences break off from a central common ancestry. You need to show that that's scientifically possible, not I can come up with a story in my head why I think it's possible. You need to verify every single part of evolutionary traits that can cause speciation to change based on science. That's what you have to do to win the debate, or you need to admit that it's a religion.
Like domain
I
nation.
showed that in the opener. I showed every single change necessary has been observed.
Hold
So
on, and-
to address there's a lot of stuff we need to address now. So
Agreed.
radiometric dating cross confirms each other, and it's cross confirmed by ice core dating, by tectonic plate dating, by all kinds of different dating.
Correct.
Rely on assumption.
It's not incorrect. They all come out with the same.
Oh, how do you
numbers.
verify constant decay rate?
Because you can't change it.
Yeah. So we've scientifically
But
But
proven
guess
that
what?
you can change it.
Here's what I'll do. Here's what I'll do for you.
Scientifically
I'm going to
proven that
assume-
you
4,000
can
years
change.
ago it was different.
You can't. But I'm going
We've-
to
we've
do. I'm
proven
going to do you a favor.
been.
I'm going to assume variable decay rate. Are you ready?
So that you admit that what
Are
you
you
just
ready?
said is patently. Well, I'm going to say
No, I
experiments
don't.
that prove you're wrong, though. So there's muon-induced
You
decay
won't.
rate variations in a lab setting. We also have variations in decay rate simply by manipulation of temperature. These are experimentally done in lab settings. Muon-induced
Uh-huh.
decay rate.
and so that requires plasma state. So here's what I'll do. I'll assume that decay rate is variable in natural conditions, And you're going to need, not only are you going to need the Earth to be in a plasma state, but the Earth would be in a plasma state if that was variable, because
Correct.
accelerated nuclear decay produces, well, all nuclear decay produces heat. So if you accelerate it, you produce more heat. All creationist organizations are trying to work on this because this is an absolute knockdown defeater of your position, because accelerated nuclear decay will melt the Earth 20 times over, will boil the oceans off. The Earth will be hotter than the surface of the sun.
Oh, just because you say so, but in reality,
No, it's because we can calculate how much heat comes
That's
off
why
of
you
a
have to
decay
impulsively and
chain.
emotionally interrupt.
We can calculate how much heat comes off of a decay chain.
Yeah, that's a cool story, man. So we have
It's
all kinds of
science.
volcanic. We have
So
all
you're
kinds
just a
of
science
volcanic.
denier. All
We have
right,
all
on
kinds
to
of
my
vol-
next
Nate,
point
you're just
before you bring up
hysterical
10
and
more
emotional.
points.
Like everything you're
I'm
saying is
emotional,
Just
and the guy is
citing-
incessantly interrupting me emotionally.
And
I
so
let you guys talk for a long time, and you brought up a lot of points I have to get to.
Well, the whole audience can see that you're interrupting me because you're afraid to hear the rebuttal. It's
Because you talk for 5 minutes, I talk for 1 minute, and then you try and talk for another 10 minutes.
I wasn't even 3 seconds in.
I would like
Okay.
both sides.
Right, because I would like to finish.
I do need one of you at least to. So it sounded like I don't even want to pick sides.
You know he interrupted me. Everyone knows it.
Of course I
One of
did,
you-
because I wanted to finish. Because
Well,
you
then-
then,
interrupted me.
deny it.
Witsit, please finish, and then we're going to hand it over to you, Snake.
Yeah, the point was simple that you have to assume constant decay rate, and we've actually shown a fluctuation of variables, not that the entire Earth has to be hotter than the sun, which you made up and you can't verify how hot the sun is anyway, but there's all kinds of extreme situations. In fact, electromagnetic manipulation, and there are quantum fluctuations that can cause a fluctuation in decay rate. Just because you say nuh-uh and you make up a story about what would happen doesn't mean anything. You're claiming a constant decay rate, which means you're making claims of billions of years of what the Earth could or could not have done, and that is a base assumption required for radiometric dating. We can continue to go to all of them, but that's like, you can't even propose evolution without substantiating radiometric dating, unfortunately for you.
Your entire reply is literally just nuh-uh, because I told you why, assuming I literally assumed that decay rate was not constant, and I showed you how that destroys your entire position. I didn't just make it up. The RATE team, which is a creationist funded professional, quote unquote, it's called the RATE team, and they were formed to study this heat problem of creationism. And what they reported was that it cannot be solved with any scientific means, because you can calculate and observe with science the heat that comes out of a decay chain. And your response is just nuh-uh, and to
This is
repeat
decay
the
heat
same
decay?
thing.
I just want to. This is called like heat decay. I just want to know because I want to look into that. It sounds
It's-
pretty.
It's just any radiometric decay will produce heat.
Heat decay.
Yeah, and it's a complete variable spectrum of the heat produced, and there's a ton of different ways to do it. And you've somehow determined how hot it would have to be. It's hilarious, and you're just making
Right.
up claims.
It's called
Making
math.
up claims. You're making up claims because this also ties into the claim of the parent-daughter isotope relationship and the geological assumptions in which the samples are interpreted with, to then make the claim about the decay rate and what it would have to be like in the conditions. And you have to, of course, assume that there's no contamination, like fluid alone contaminates the samples. You have to assume a perfect fairy tale evolution world of billions of years with a constant decay rate and no contamination and a perfect original daughter isotope relationship. You have to make all three of those assumptions. There's no way around
No,
it.
we don't, because it's impossible for all of the different measurements to all come out with the same number.
They don't.
Also, if
They
we're
don't.
wrong, the
They're
Earth would be
basing their
molten.
measure
right
on
now.
a consistency.
And they don't even all come out with the same. They objectively, in
They do.
fact, if you just sent them random samples, they couldn't know at all. You have to tell them all kinds of different things to try to get them to narrow it down. And then they selectively
No, they
choose what they're
don't.
going to look at.
No, that's
Yes,
a lie.
it's been. Oh, really? So what about the people that
Yes.
took samples
So-
from like volcanic rocks and sent it to 3 different prestigious, some of the most prominent testing radiometric dating labs in the world, and they all came back with different dates?
They didn't.
Do you have a
Creationists
hard
creationists do that, and try to carbon date rocks and stuff like that.
No, they send it to
so
a
you
lab.
wanted to know what the
Can you show us
evidence.
Use
evidence
carbon
for that,
dating.
please? Can you
You
show
just said
like,
carbon dating,
Yeah.
and they came back with 300 million years.
Nice
How
story,
far
bro.
does carbon dating go,
you a
Snake?
chance to prove it. Can you show us evidence? Just put a link in the chat to show us
Yeah,
that. What
sure.
You're
You
talking
should have
about.
already
These are
researched this
all-
if you're such an expert.
These are
No,
all
literally, we're
creationist
asking
myths.
you to back up what you're claiming with evidence. We're giving you
Okay.
a chance.
Okay.
I'm still
I
waiting
will
for
happily do
Pitch's
that.
evidence
Okay.
about cancer never received. Go ahead, just send us the evidence, okay?
Can you give me evolution of change of species?
Yeah.
Thanks for
So
playing. Hey.
scientifically, if I can predict the contents
CP, I'll
and
get you on that
phenomena,
breast cancer link. Do you want me to do that during the debate? I guess I'll ask.
Yeah, that's just a
If-
diversion tactic
Yeah.
while they don't substantiate
Listen.
their burden of proof.
listen, if I can predict the contents
These
and the
people never
phenomena
predict
of the
things.
natural world with a hypothesis, is that science?
Hey, real fast. No, you need to have a naturally occurring observable phenomena. But Snake, real fast. I'm curious.
I just
How-
said
how- do
predict
you know how-
phenomena.
Do you know
I'm
how
not
far?
gonna. I'm not.
Do you know
you
how
didn't
far
answer
carbon
the
dating
question.
goes? You just claimed that the rocks were from carbon dating. I'm about to drop a source from prestigious universities, but real fast, can you tell me
There's
how,
there's a lot of creationist idiots out there trying to
Really?
carbon date rocks.
how high up can carbon dating even allegedly go?
Can you answer the question that I
You
asked
don't know?
Can you answer the question instead of dodging?
Well, you're dodging my question, which is the subject you changed from.
No, because
Yeah.
I asked you a question
Yeah.
and you changed the subject.
No, I had already brought up radiometric dating. You're trying to run away. So can you answer the question? You said that it was carbon dating and that creationists lie.
I will not, because you
creationist-
are trying to divert from my question.
No, quote unquote. You said creationists lie and try
so
to
I'm
use
going to
carbon
ask
dating.
the question again.
So this is. Are you
I'm
going to
gonna
just
ask the
keep
question
interrupting?
again.
What is up with that?
I'm going to ask it again. If
I'm going
predict,
to. I'm going to repeat myself no matter what you say because this
okay,
is
that's
dishonest.
that's good for me. It shows you can't answer the question.
Project.
If I can predict the contents and phenomena, don't forget that word you did last time, of the natural world, that's science, right?
You didn't predict a naturally occurring observable phenomena. You saw
Yeah, we
fossil
did.
bones and made up stories about how they got there, which would be the naturally observable phenomena that you're claiming happens. Back to the point of what you diverted from, you claimed creationists lie and date rocks with carbon dating for the fifth time. Do you know how far allegedly back carbon dating can go?
Yeah.
Austin, I've given
far?
you the chance to basically prove that what you're saying is correct.
Okay,
I'm still
cool, no
waiting on
problem.
that
Snake,
card.
Snake, can you answer instead of your teammate saving you again? Can you answer?
I'm literally just calling for evidence, which none of you guys have produced whatsoever.
Okay, we're in the middle
Like-
of a debate. I'll look it up in a second. Snake, can you answer the question?
This is
since
what
you-
a debate requires: is evidence.
Yeah,
if this
can you
was
show me a
judge
change of
debate, You would
species?
lose in like 1 second.
Can you show me a
Call-
change of species? Oh, you
He's
lost in 1
wasting
second.
time.
Wow.
Okay, so you also wanted evidence of plant to animal
Just
transition,
avoid it.
and I
It's
said
whatever, bro.
that it's possible. We're getting to evidence of evolution. You're just
Just
trying to waste
avoiding it.
our time.
No,
Yeah,
I
that's-
refuted it, exposed you. You made a claim that was untrue. They made the just so the
No.
room knows, and I'll drop the
There are
source. I'll drop
creationists
the
who
source and
attempt to
I'll
carbon
drop the
date
source.
fossils.
I just want them to understand what I'm talking about. Okay.
Okay.
So just give me a second, then I'm going to fall back and let you guys talk with Nathan or whatever. The point is that we send it to people sent rock samples to many different labs, and they came up with predictions like 300 million years, 95 million
The
years.
people
5
cite
million.
a source.
Can you please stop interrupting me? Where's the moderator? That's the 15th straight
would
time. I
like
know
to be
you're
able to
also an
send-
evolutionist, but this is unacceptable.
I feel like Pitch and I should just grab a beer and
All
let
I-
you two go at it. Like
All I
that's
care about is
Like, I'm
clean
a
and
tea guy.
healthy sound bites so that everyone gets their side heard. I am enjoying the lively back and forth, and we still have 15 minutes more of open discussion. The floor is yours, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, we're running out of time, and you've repeated yourself about 5
All right,
times.
I'm not going to stop coming on the
So I'm
channel.
just
I'm not going to
asking
be here while you're
for-
modding anymore. You have a bias with Snake. He's interrupted 20 times. The whole audience has seen it. Everyone knows it. I can't finish a coherent statement. I just want to. I want to hand it back over to Nathan, but I can't even make one statement. So I'm going to make the statement, or we'll just keep doing it. Okay?
Thank you for
Because
your
we're not
interruption.
children.
But
We're going to keep doing
you
it then,
have,
just so the audience
you
knows
have
what I'm saying.
repeated.
Just so the audience knows what I'm talking about. They took rock samples, they sent it to different prestigious radiometric dating labs. They got hundreds of millions of years off, okay? Has nothing to do with carbon dating, which tops off at allegedly 50,000 years. Nothing to do with creationists being so stupid that they carbon date rocks, okay? It was about radiometric dating of volcanic samples. Thank you.
And so I just
You-
want to have a short reply in that my own political or religious beliefs do not come in here. I only care about clean sound bites. I would still love you to keep on coming on with it. I love the 4 people on this panel. We still are having a lively discussion. I hope everyone out there is enjoying the show. And again, right back over to you guys and gals.
So you haven't given a source. You've repeated yourself for about the 10th time, and we're running out of time. So if you want the evidence of plant and animal evolution being possible, then we should get on to that. I gave you evidence. I gave you an actual source with the name of the experiments in my opener, where single-celled organisms evolved into multicellular organisms. Combining that with other evidence that I provided is experiments and natural populations getting a mitochondria-like organelle. So those are the two main parts of a plant becoming an animal, or at least diversifying from a common ancestor.
I must.
Would you concede
Plants are multicellular. Plants are already multicellular. So the single becoming multicellular is not plant and animal cells being able to be shown spawning from a single population.
It was a unicellular algae, so it had no multicellular ancestors.
You think you're God? You talk about God of the gaps, man.
And I algae. I mean, there's a lot of genetic information. I think in I might be thinking of an amoeba, but the gene code of algae, some algae, I think are pretty large as well. So I think there is a possibility for there to be a mingling of DNA, a mingling of working together, because there are in simpler creatures like there's horizontal gene transfer, and so maybe like in simple creatures, this is something that
not in this. That's bacteria.
But simple creatures are able to do this as well, and like viruses too. I mean, there's a debate on
not algae.
I don't know, but it's
all right. Let's check out this evidence.
Yeah, aren't you excited?
I'm very excited. Institute of Creation Research. Wow, this sounds super unbiased.
Wow, poison the well.
Audience,
Poison the well.
Just so you know where this source came from.
You know what poisoning the well is?
It's called figuring out if your sources are neutral or not. Clearly,
so you don't know what poisoning the well is. So there's a scientific
study
what I'm
in
doing
there. You can just checking your reference.
There are assumptions made. Like there can be there are papers written about like endogenous retroviruses that do go with an assumption already of evolution being how they got where they are. So there are bias in a lot of articles. I'm talking in her reference to the ICR.org article.
And of course, there
are biases that can.
Yeah, here I'll give you 12 different.
I can't even find the full PDF. All I find is an abstract.
Okay, well, do you want me to drop a PDF?
Yeah, so you didn't actually read the paper.
I have read the papers. You claimed to the whole audience that it was carbon dating, Snake, and the lab predicted 300 million years. You have no idea what you're talking about.
I claimed that's often what happens.
This author is. I wonder how credible he is.
Okay, anyway, let's get back. Let's get back to the burden of proof with you guys. Like, can you admit that you can't actually?
He's a young Earth creationist geologist who works for the Answers in Genesis.
The PhD from Harvard.
A lot of people can go to Harvard, but he's clearly made an agenda.
But evolutionists don't have an agenda. They're actually completely immune to philosophical bias.
He believes the Grand Canyon was formed after the biblical flood. Let's find out else.
People's beliefs are irrelevant.
Yeah. Terrible. So you guys are showing your cards. You just hate you hate creationism. That's it.
And there is a difference too between.
I hate bad science.
You can't. Why don't you rebut the actual claim?
Noah's flood.
Okay, we don't need to hear you reading poisoning the well fallacies.
Shrinking. What else we got?
We don't need you to read off poisoning the well fallacies. I'm sorry you don't understand what that means.
Yeah, it's
not valid.
It just means it's not real science.
We can just move on, man. We can just move on. You guys can either actually research what you claim to know about or don't. You don't. Radiometric dating requires
Call
many
for any of
pseudoscientific.
the cards. You haven't called for any of our cards. Let's
I-
see. Let's see how our evidence stacks up.
Verify
Go ahead.
constant decay rate. Verify the fact that you actually can substantiate billions of years with radiometric dating, and that you can actually substantiate original daughter and parent isotope relationships and
Don't need to.
ratios, and substantiate that there's no contamination, which fluid alone would contaminate the actual sample.
Don't need to. We know how contamination happens. We know how to avoid it. We don't need to know the initial conditions, isochron dating. The methods cross confirm each other. That's called the scientific method.
They can't.
You
throw
don't
out
need to
dates that
know.
disagree as well.
Wait, time out. You
If
said
you
you
measure
don't need to
something that
know.
disagrees.
You know how fluid contaminates, and you know how to avoid it. What does that mean?
We know the mechanisms of how things get contaminated
Yeah, like water. So how do you know how to avoid it?
because since it's been studied by scientists, they know what it looks like and they know when it happens.
So wait.
You
How
can
do you know that
discover
it's
it.
not? How do you know
How do
that
you
no
something
water
has
has
avoided
touched
water
it?
this fast?
Because they know what it looks like when that happens.
Well, how does it look like, Snake? What's it look
I'm not
like?
a geologist.
You're objectively wrong. You wouldn't know if
No.
there was. Yes.
You would. They
Can't
know
keep it.
exactly how to avoid contamination.
elementally
There's entire
you can't-
papers written on
All
it.
right. Well,
Do
what, Nathan? Go back
fossil-
in. That was embarrassing. but
The
it's okay.
science is
There is, though-
consistently debunking you.
Even though you don't know what it is, you said.
Yeah, I'm not a geologist. I
You
don't
know
know what
it's
to look
debunking.
for, but I
Yeah.
know geologists can tell, and they've written papers on it.
Have you read any of the papers?
Yeah.
Okay, then how do you know when something's been in contact with fluid and contaminated?
I don't know. I'm not a geologist.
So you're
I
just making
think
stuff.
there's like
Move on.
there's a decay curve, I think is what it is, where it's supposed to be like a linear graph that shows consistency. If the points are linear, if you can plot points and they stay on this line, that's supposed to show that there is a constant decay rate. And there's a geologist who was saying that he is an advocate of constant decay rates, but he was saying that admitting that if they get a date that doesn't fit on this line, they will throw it out. There is instances of dates being thrown out that are, for whatever reason, be it contamination or be it something that disagrees, because you are relying on your tools measuring consistently, that there are consistent decay rates. You have to rely on conditions being stable. There's a lot of assumptions that all have to line up, and there are scientists who will throw things out if it does not match the line that they are needing it to be. And like if you give them limestone, you have to tell them what layer it is or what fossils are found in that limestone to be able for them to accurately date it, when the limestone itself should be enough. So
You can actually test whether there is a bias in these reporting. King Croc-Duck, who was here, presented that one time. He showed mathematically that there is no bias in reporting dates. And the ones that are thrown out are usually thrown out because they detect things like contamination.
I mean, it's
and
because
I've
it doesn't go
already
with their
said-
assumption.
Oh, well, you like to interrupt too, I guess. So
That's hilarious. that you even
constant-
say that.
it is hilarious because now I'm pointing it out every time you do it. I also said constant decay rates are not necessary because, one, if they're not, then the earth melts.
Maybe.
And
That's a cool story, man.
yeah, math
You're
is
basically
pretty cool.
God, bro. You can look back in time.
Well,
you look at the sky. You can. Look
I
back
can
in
do
time, and you look at
multiplication.
rocks.
Why
Yeah,
does
I
your
wouldn't-
opponent keep
math
calling
is
you
not
God? I don't really understand where this is
Because
coming
one of
from.
his main
I
arguments
wouldn't-
in his opener was that we use God of the gaps, but he constantly just gets to make up assumptions and claims about looking into rocks and knowing what happened billions of years ago.
No, these are the calculations of creationists, including
Why-
creationists.
No.
So yeah, I wouldn't call myself God just
That's not
because
true.
I can also do like multiplication. It is true. The rate project.
Okay, you can.
RATE.
They don't claim
creationist
that
fact.
the Earth is billions of years old, and if they do, they have nothing to do with our
They
position.
don't. So you don't listen. They did the math on how much heat would be generated by plate tectonics, meteors,
I heard
and
that part.
nuclear decay.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't sink in.
Then why'd you just bring them up as a rebuttal to my claim, which is that you're just assuming billions of years? Your whole argument
Because
is that
you said
know- oh my
because
god,
you
dude.
said
Well,
I'm telling
I got
a
a
story.
question. Like plate tectonics and meteors and stuff, that kind of gets a little bit into cosmology.
Well, I will say this is the last few minutes before we go into the Q&A. Please, everyone out in chat, having fun, keep on sending in your chats and super chats. But for the panel, now is the last time to get questions out for each other. And when you're all ready, we're going into the Q&A.
Can you guys show
Yeah,
me a
so-
change of species?
Yeah, I already
Domain.
did.
Domain. Because that is something that if you can
We've
show
already covered this, and you still won't concede that we won the debate, and we've clearly covered this already.
Really, what was
Yeah,
his
so you're
answer?
acting-
What was his answer? Can you
showing
reiterate
algae
it?
becoming
So you are-
algae is not a non-plant, non-animal becoming plant and animal over time.
Yeah.
So-
That is a different claim, and that would, like, creation doesn't claim that. So that, I think that would falsify the philosophical position of creation. If you could show this domain split, because clear, like, plants and animals are different kinds. Absolutely, they're made on different days according to the Bible. So
Well, I
Just
showed
do
that
claim multicellular.
the necessary changes are possible. And using this assumption, we can make novel predictions that
So-
no other theory can make.
Really? So when did you make that assumption, which is the opposite of science? When you made the assumption,
not.
when did? Hey,
So
when
you
did
don't
you
understand the
Hey,
scientific method.
please stop interrupting me, man. When you made that assumption, when did you go and observe this prediction of a plant turning into an animal?
We didn't observe that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Well, that's why I haven't conceded yet, because you can assume, and then please, like, science is about making assumption, but then you have to put the metal in the fire and actually
Test it.
Right. Science is about
Bullshit.
testing assumptions or hypotheses. So we can
Yeah, independent
take this
variables.
assumption.
Concede that is
and
what
see if it
science
happens.
is in
Yeah.
fact about.
Right.
So
So
you
you-
admit that you didn't fulfill the burden of science.
We absolutely
What?
did. It follows every step of the scientific method.
Okay,
down to
except for the
prediction.
observation.
You haven't
Team honestly keeps shifting the goalpost in unrealistic and unreasonable
No,
ways.
unrealistically,
saying
you
that
claim
because
that
you-
that plants turn into animals, and that we just have to believe you that it
You
happens.
just said
and
that
we're
that
asking you for
assumption
evidence.
wasn't observed.
Asking for evidence.
So
of your
this is
claim.
why your position is God of the gaps, because you
What?
pick
We're not
on-
talking about God.
I feel like you
Yeah,
don't
we are.
understand what that term
Claiming
means.
You're
We do know
saying
what the
it's
term
not
means.
possible without a creator. So what you're doing is trying to cherry pick little gaps
Philosophical position.
in the knowledge and say there's gaps in the knowledge and the science, therefore it's not a science.
No,
That's
what we're
not how
doing
science
is this
works.
is
Show every
evolution
step
on
is even
trial.
possible.
This is
right.
This is evolution on trial. You want to shift it over to us replacing your evolution claim with creationism, which you did your whole opener. You claim evolution. This is evolution on trial. You're making a positive claim.
As a science.
You,
And the
you can
theory makes
substantiate
predictions, therefore it's
scientifically.
science.
If you wait, can you please? If you can substantiate scientifically that you can show in an experiment setting that plants can turn into animals, because you're claiming it's science while we're acknowledging creationism as a philosophical position, that would be great. If not, just
So you're
admit
saying
you
you
can't
have
substantiate it.
absolutely no burden of proof whatsoever.
Not scientifically, no. Because
No,
we're not
it's different
claiming it to be
claims.
Science.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And
if you're gonna
basically,
claim
you're
that
also
natural
making the
phenomena
claim
happen-
that you can set the burden of proof and reject that we've met it unconditionally.
You're making the
not
scientific
what's happening.
claim. Again, you're making a scientific claim. And evolution includes the claim that plants will turn into animals. You have no scientific evidence of that. As a
Not modern
creationist,
plants.
That
as a
animals
creationist,
and
we
plants share
concede at the
common
jump. We
ancestry.
can't scientifically
Okay,
manipulate.
I'm going to
the
go
creator.
ahead and straight up accuse you guys of shifting the goalpost. Can you articulate how you've set the burden of this debate in a fair and equitable way that allows for reasonable clash?
Sure.
Absolutely. So
All right.
if you
So
are
how,
going to be
how have you achieved this debate so that it requires reasonable burdens of proof for both sides and not simply allowing you to contest absolutely every single thing that we say and finding any crack in information and claiming that you won? How is the burden of proof equally distributed between both sides? Can you explain that?
Sophistry.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are
Go for
going
it.
to claim that evolution is a philosophy, a philosophical belief, an
That's not what we
idea
claim.
about origin, then you are not going to have to prove every single step can naturally happen because that is your claim. Once you go to science, which we are not going in, creation is not going into the domain of claiming to be science. Creation is staying in philosophy. So the scientific burdens of the scientific method, which is what I talked about in my opener, was you have a burden. If you're going to go from philosophy into science, you have a new burden, a new standard that you have to uphold to. You have to be able to say, if you're going to make a claim that plants and animals can come from one lineage, you have to be able to show that it is possible for a lineage to actually split that far off and go outside of and have that type of genetic range. And you have to be able to show that these things are naturally possible. Natural processes, you can't have man involvement. You can't do any, this is more for abiogenesis, but like filtering and trapping and everything, because this, you have to make a claim. If you're science, you're no longer in philosophy. So we can keep it fair in philosophy all you want. And okay, you're going to explain it like this and we'll explain it like this. Completely fine.
Yeah, and then we'll shake your hand and we'll be like, okay, we have different philosophies, but you guys
Well,
want
the
to pretend it's
ultimate
science.
is,
Well,
with
actually-
science, we have to believe what we have the most significant evidence for, and it's clear that we outweigh you on evidence. The only evidence that you really had whatsoever to contradict us came from a young Earth creationist who believes that the Grand Canyon came from a biblical flood. So I'm going to ask the judges who
That
are
has no
watching,
bearing.
the audience members,
Wow.
do you find this evidence substantial enough to outweigh all of the evidence that we have that shows that evolution is real?
Gaslighting,
Answer
straw
is
man,
no,
so-
this is not
poisoning the
gaslighting.
well.
I'm not even talking to you. I'm talking to the audience. If you don't think that that is the case, then vote for evolution. And if you do think that is the case, then fine, vote for young Earth creationism.
Well,
Sophistry.
So
CP,
I'd
CP
like
and
one more
Snake,
thing.
Well, you'll both be able to, and then I'm going to hand it over to the skeptics, because we are going to. This is a chance to tell people what you guys got going on the internet, on the real worlds, as well as what are your final thoughts on anything on the topic as we move into the Q&A. But the evolution side for both of you, whenever you'd like.
Oh,
One at a
should I
time
go
with
first
both.
or?
Take it away.
Okay. So yeah, so no one predicts that modern plants will become animals. But we have shown that it is possible, that the necessary changes are in fact scientifically possible. Basically this follows the scientific method. Absolutely. And you haven't addressed that this whole debate. So we start with the hypothesis. You can call it an assumption. So we hypothesize. For example, Darwin predicted that there would be a bird with unfused wing fingers, and he predicted exactly where it would be in the fossil record using this theory. Therefore, since it was successful, that's pretty good evidence. Then it kept happening over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And so therefore, it's reasonable to infer that this hypothesis that's been confirmed hundreds of times also extends to other lineages that have not been necessarily confirmed. Because just because science has gaps in it doesn't mean it's still not a science. Of course, we'd like those gaps to be filled in, but of course, you have to hide all of your criticism in the gaps and not the actual successes. We showed that it was possible, and there was barely a whiff of a pushback on that. And I also would like to state that new information has been observed to come about, either from it's all basically changes to existing information. Your mommy and your daddy hand you down genes, and your genes are different each generation. And this is where Whitsitt's ignoring it, but we've actually observed the breakage of genes and mutations that can fix those breakages. So that's actually new information. With the multicellular example, that's new information as well. And it's not from outside, it's from changes to existing structures. Take it away.
Wow.
Yeah, so I just want to say, just from observing the entire structure of debate, there has been absolutely no interaction, no clash, no consistent request for burdens, no acknowledgments that we've actually met those burdens of proof, and quite ridiculous evidence. So at the end of the day, the difference between science and religion is that science is in fact always evolving, and that is why it adapts and changes to new information. Our opponents have basically asserted that we would need to have conclusive and absolute information for them to take us seriously, but then we would no longer transition into science, but therefore religion. They have also had absolutely no clear reasoning for their case, and they haven't interacted with our arguments whatsoever. They've honestly completely diverted to everything that we have said and not really comprehended nor understood our points. So I really want to ask our audience, can we really take this seriously? And if so, why? That's all I really have to say.
Thank you so very much, Snake and CP, the evolution side, and we are now going to hand it to Witsit and Nathan. The floor is both of yours.
First, if you want, bro, or I will. I don't care.
You can take it first.
Okay. Yeah, it was really simple, right? It's like natural science is science that pertains to the natural world, right? And so you have a naturally occurring phenomena, and then you propose a hypothesis, a cause and effect relationship test, and you have a presumed cause independent variable. You manipulate that to verify it's the cause of the effect. Very simple stuff, basic stuff, right? You're claiming that this is a science, and that's why I said it's actually a religion for atheists. So they pretend it's science, but it's not. And if you guys would concede it's not, then we would have no problem. You could go around and believe in the evolution religion. But one thing that was for sure is that, like I said, the radiometric dating thing gets breezed past, and they just pretend that they have billions of years to work with, and we're supposed to grant them that assumption. We're supposed to grant them the assumption of abiogenesis. We're supposed to ignore the statistical impossibility of the actual DNA formulating in the first place. And as to like all the gaslighting at the end, we didn't divert. In fact, if anyone watched in the audience, honestly, without a bias, you guys diverted every single time that we made a specific point, you diverted. And what we're saying is, for example, with the animals and plants, you're claiming that has to happen within evolution. So we're asking, okay, well, can you give us scientific evidence of it? Can you show us scientifically that actually occurs? And no, but we can show you that we think it could occur, and that's somehow science. That's not science. Science is actual experiment. That's validation to the scientific method and scientific means. So in summary, it is nothing more than a bunch of base assumptions, begging the questions, reification fallacies, and then effectively gaslighting, poisoning the well of the alternative position. And it's a philosophy. So if people could just be honest and acknowledge that basically evolution is a philosophy, it's normally opposed to creationism, so it requires abiogenesis, requires billions of years of radiometric dating assumptions, constant decay rates, all kinds of perfect conditions that are unrealistic, and initial conditions and all this stuff and ratios. If you could admit it's a philosophy and you have to speculate and come up with ideas of what you think could or couldn't happen, that'd be cool. And again, to reiterate my point, whenever an animal begins to change or there's like some anatomical structure differences within the same kind, that isn't proof of evolution. If anything, that's proof of design, that there's actually diversity within a base foundation and storage house of information in which that system can actually adapt to its surroundings. And it's a misnomer whenever we grant the word adaptation to you guys because you misdefine it. So it's pseudoscience, it's religion for atheists, and it's wrapped up as if it's not philosophy.
And just to piggyback on what Austin said there, like if you take a boar, because like a pig, but if you take like a boar and you breed it and you get it into these pigs, there's actually something called regression to the mean, where if you let a pig go back into the wild, it will actually regress or go back to its kind of most survivable set of gene expressions. As far as the Darwin claiming about a fossil and then finding it there, that is a prediction, sure. So if you want to take the creation, that's the evolution philosophy. You want to take the creation philosophy. Okay, if I'm a dog breeder and I'm breeding dogs, okay, I got a dog and I'm breeding golden retrievers, and now I got another golden retriever, so it's a success for creation. If you want to talk about hiding in the gaps, when we are talking about things like fossil structure, homologous structures, we're talking about genetic similarities, these things like that. Common ancestry, common designer can go a long way in explaining these, but these have explanation. Where you have to really get into the nitty gritty is where there is a difference in worldview claim. So creation does not claim that one type of gene, one type of population can become plants and animals, which was not shown. And so this is not hiding in the gaps. This is trying to press evolution. If you want to be a science, okay, but you are now going to have to show all of these worldview claims that defy 100% of everything that we have ever observed. And then I did want to get to the Genet and the Bengal. But we did cover like the tapers and everything. CP, I did address your claim about the layers directly. So like we have had a back and forth. And then I want to say that all of this talk has been about life, but I'm skeptical that non-life can become alive. Say scientifically, we remove all bias, all authority and everything like that. I pose scientifically a hypothesis that non-life can become alive. Therefore, anything that requires non-life to become alive requires belief. Now, what something like abiogenesis, which some evolutionists will try to separate from abiogenesis, but many know that it is a very serious issue for evolution. And if, say, hypothetically in a lab, they did discover abiogenesis tomorrow, the next day it would be in every single biology textbook. This is how we believe evolution, or how life started, because this is what we did in a lab naturally. So if I pose the hypothesis about non-life not being able to become alive, and that's my hypothesis, I cite every observation ever of every breeding of anything, any life. Now, okay, you have all these ideas of abiogenesis. Go ahead and test. Okay, we're going to try rocks. We're going to try wet, dry cycles with pools and shallow tides and everything like that. And we're going to use natural conditions, temperature switches and everything. You can freeze it. You can do all that. I don't know if you can use a vacuum because nature abhors a vacuum. But if you want to go through all of these things, try it. Every one of them has failed so far. You can't use relay synthesis or any man-made interference. So you're going to run into these issues. They're all going to fail. And then this hypothesis that non-life cannot become alive stands true scientifically. If you are going to claim otherwise, I'm going to have to ask you to show it. I want to see the evidence that can happen, because that is what evolution, that is the start of evolution. You cannot run a race without crossing the starting line. You cannot get a tree to grow without a seed. There has to be a seed there. So we're talking about branches of evolution. Where's the seed? So that was I think glossed over, but I think there's a reason for that to be glossed over by evolution. So, oh, and also thank you everybody for being here and for this participation, everyone, both sides, Amy as well. And so thank you all very much. And can I just throw one thing? It's kind of, if y'all are like that thing that I shared, I'm just gonna, get the thing that I shared about heart disease earlier, and the reversal of it, that's a very real thing. Number one cause of death that has been shown to be reversible. Hopefully you don't know anyone, but that's something that has been done. If y'all want to look up Brooke Goldner, Dr. Brooke Goldner, she is wonderful. Autoimmune conditions can be reversed. She herself healed. Lovely woman. Michael Greger, Nutrition Facts, lots of good information. If you're ever curious about getting into plant stuff or anything like that, Vegan Society of Hawaii has a lot of good stuff as well. But this is stuff that our body is designed for plants. That's what all these recoveries are showing. So I just wanted to share that. Only way shown to reverse heart disease, the number one cause of death. So that is really personally why this is so big to me. This evolution topic is because of this angiogram and trying to make sure that our public health care system really cares about the health of the public. So thank you all very much. And yeah, okay, I'm good with my spiel. So
thank you so very much. I in fact want to thank Snake, CP, Witsit, and Nathan for giving the lively back and forth. But wait, there is more. We are about to be switching into the Q&A. I do want to send an extra special thanks for everyone making the stream work behind the scenes, like Sideshow, the mods, and the entire Modern Day Debate community. But you can tag me with your questions and super chats at Amy Newman, including those like Kango for $5. Ask question for Witsit. Please explain pesticide resistance in insects. Did God use weed killer?
They already have the information intrinsically built into them to react to things in their environment. That is actually a creationist evidence.
Thank you for that super chat and response. $2 super chat from Dancing Ostrich. Why is Nathan dressed as Where's Waldo? Sending love to the super chatters. We always keep on reminding to attack arguments instead of people, but we do love the support, so thank you, David.
Oh, that's a compliment.
That's not an
I'll take it as a
attack.
compliment.
Oh, well then there you go. David D. Ranieri's $5 super chat. How do you resolve the heat problem caused by radioactive decay being sped up in the young Earth model? It's absolutely fatal to young Earth.
Plate tectonics might not be what we think they are. and I think there is a lot of water. Is that accounting for like everything? I've not heard about this problem until now, but like there's a lot of water on the earth, and so water has a lot of heat specificity, so it can hold on to a lot of heat. So that might absorb it, but also if the earth is not that old, and if things don't decay quite the same, or what rates are you using? Are you assuming that it's constantly shifting? What if it shifts to a much slower rate or a much faster rate? If it's a slower rate, then you're not giving off as heat as quickly, so maybe there is no heat problem after all. You're just choosing an assumption where there's a faster heat
Well,
let off.
they also bake in this geological assumption spanned out across the whole earth as if it's all the same and works perfect all the way down, and we know exactly what it is, and that's not even reality. And you have volcanic activity, and of course you can change plasma state very quickly, and there's all kinds of electromagnetic phenomena and quantum fluctuations that have now been shown in the last few years that would actually affect decay rate, including muon decay. So it's a cool story. I mean, it sounds good. Just say it would burn the whole earth. It's impossible. I mean, it's a cool story.
Are we doing responses on these?
So you are allowed to respond, but if it's for the person, they at least get the final comment.
Right. Okay. So it's not just a story, it's actual calculations. It's called math. And the rate team of creationists did this math, and they found that the oceans would boil off. So that's not a saver. And the math, you could have hurricanes and all kinds of like ice comets. It wouldn't really move the dial at all. So yeah. Also, there's a different amount of decay happenings for some reason as you get closer and closer to continental ridges and deeper into the rock. So I don't know why that would happen, but again, if the total amount of decay can be calculated, because we can observe how much heat is released by decay, and then we can do a little bit of math over how many years that happens, and it melts the earth. So it's not a story with it.
And then
So-
Witsit or Nathan, you do get the final last comment.
So you do have there is a difference between math and science. They overlap with each other. Well, math overlaps with science a lot. There can be a lot of use in there, but you're measuring something kind of on a small scale, and then how do you know that where all of that particular element is that's decaying? How do you know the exact quantity of that in the surface? How do you know what's out in the middle of the ocean, on the ocean floors? It sounds like there's a lot of assumption to that. Austin, you got anything to?
Yeah. One of the things we didn't get to, one of the most acknowledged and well-known fundamental assumptions and problems with it is you can't get entire elemental isolation. Can't get entire elemental isolation in the first place to even determine decay rate. So let's just pretend that doesn't exist, and then we can do some calculations and make up stories.
And a $2 super chat. Oh,
I'll check into that.
the spice is real. $2 from Magdalene. Witsit is the poster child for Dunning-Kruger.
You love you too.
Thank you for the support and the response. And another $5 super chat from Magdalene. There is very little going on behind Witsit's bovine grin.
I still love you, and so does the creator.
Thank you for the continued support and both of those responses, Witsit. And then a $10 super chat from David D. Ramirez. Were both extent elephants on the Ark? If no, you have so few animal pairs need to create new species per generation to see current phylogeny. If yes, the Ark needs to be orders of magnitude larger.
So there were one of the misconceptions about the Ark was that there was only 2 of every kind brought on the Ark. There are actually 7 of each clean animal, and then 2 of the rest that were brought on. And you also do not have to bring, full-grown animals on. You can bring babies, and if these animals are already walking to the Ark under the kind of the influence of the creator, if God is guiding them, then God can guide them to wherever they have to go and help get their populations restarted. So I think that would have, admittedly, it's a supernatural influence, but we're talking about philosophy.
Yeah, exactly. We acknowledge that, and it's kind of weird that like in the opener for proving evolution, it's always like this wouldn't work on the arc. Let's say hypothetically you did verify that, like that doesn't prove evolution, but yeah. Anyway, he answered it pretty thoroughly. So there you go.
Thank you for those responses and the super chat, David. A $2 super chat from Michaelion. Spinning ball flying through an infinite vacuum.
That's got to be for you guys.
Yep.
Anno, thank you for that super chat and the response. And a $10 super chat from Virginia Botanist. Witsit, why do families of plants show different geographic distribution today according to the position of ancient Gondwana supercontinent? Plate tectonics is shown by the seafloor spread.
Why are plants geographically distributed based on the what?
The position of the ancient, I know I'm saying this wrong, Gondwana supercontinent? Gondwana?
Okay. That's a cool story. That it just seems like it's so weird. There's this double standard where people that are anti-creationists can literally just make up stories about billions of years, and I'm supposed to answer for them. But yeah, there's geographical distribution based on climate and a fluctuation of variables. I don't know why that would be confusing. And the seafloor, how does the seafloor help any of your claims of some species turning into another one, or that you have a change in domain? It doesn't help you at all. But geological fields are built heavily on assumption, and this is well known, and it's a thing that gets misrepresented by people that aren't actually in the field.
Thank you.
Yeah, people who aren't in the field like you, who don't understand that is very well evidenced.
Dude, you admitted a second earlier that like, you didn't know. You just know that a geologist must know. So don't project.
I know the chemistry. I don't know all of geology. Correct. And
there's a lot of geological assumptions.
I'm not going to be like you and just pretend that I know every single scientific subject.
I don't know everything, but I know that you can't get elemental isolation for radiometric dating.
And he has to be the final word because it was for him. Oh no, you could say something. It's still your side, but the
keeping with with the plants. I mean, if pre-flood someone liked a particular plant, if the technology was different back then when they were building pyramids and stuff, someone could have brought a plant from one place to another. They brought cherry blossoms to DC, so people could move plants around back in the past, and then they put them where they put them. So if you like a plant, but you have to move to another country for some reason, if it grows there, you're probably going to take a seed or two with you.
How would that support evolution? I don't understand. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know how that would support evolution. But okay.
Tectonic drift would take millions of years. Yeah, how does a plant?
I just don't even. Okay. Whatever the connection is there. Full story, bro.
And all right. Thank you for the super chat, Virginia, and the answers panel. And a $5 super chat from David Valaire. Witsit, you are doing the same lame routine that you do.
I love you, and so does the creator.
There you go. Thank you so very much, David, for the support and super chat and your response. And another $2 super chat from David. Extreme situations do not negate the rule.
I need to substantiate this alleged rule. It's not science if you don't do that.
What's extreme?
Yeah. No specificity there.
What qualifies as extreme?
Thank you. And both times, David, as well as your responses. And then $10 from the Science of Science. Why does Snake sound like Brenda?
No idea.
Thank you so much for the super chat, the Science of Sciences, and your response. And then David D. Ramirez, $5 super chat Austin, when did you stop bringing evidence to debates and start going through a Rolodex of fallacies to sound intellectual without having an argument?
Yeah, so if you understood what the definition of a logical fallacy is, you would know that it's an invalid argument. So when your opponent makes an argument that's invalid and logically fallacious, like the way that you debate is you point that out, right? And that doesn't mean your conclusion's wrong, but it means that what you're proposing to support it is wrong. So the fact that I have to constantly call out fallacy shows the problem. And of course, I do bring evidence when I have a positive claim. We acknowledge this is a philosophical claim of intelligent design, but of course I can definitely bring tons of positive evidence for intelligent design. It's everywhere. But the main problem is that this was supposed to be evolution on trial, and they're supposed to substantiate their positive claims. And really, it's just this long, drawn out vocalization of the hatred of the idea of an intelligent designer. It's much less about the illusory disguise of science. So we were just trying to hold them accountable on their claims because we acknowledge philosophy while they claim science falsely when it's actually religion.
Well, my
I just want to
partner.
quickly respond to that. Is that
Yeah.
okay, Snake?
Mhm.
So let's just play his game and say that this is all about evolution on trial. If this
And
was
hatred
truly a
of God?
trial, yeah, if this was truly a trial, innocent until proven guilty, so your burden of proof would have been significantly less. The point is, in a debate, each side needs to have equal burdens, and you clearly did not establish that.
What are
Snake,
you
go ahead.
talking? Okay,
And
well, I get
also-
to address this. I get to address it. Snake, go ahead.
Yeah. Also,
so
she doesn't hate God, so
I didn't say. Okay, whatever. Vitriolic dislike of the idea of a creationist
Mhm.
and moral accountability. That's my opinion, and it's a generalization.
it's not.
But it's a generalization, and she specifically said, "Who said I believed in God?" Right? I mean, when you said that she believed in God, but who cares? I
do
don't
believe in
care.
God. I said that you can't say fairly that if you're an evolutionist, you are exclusionist to other religions because I'm a religious person and I
I
believe
never
in
said
evolution.
that. I said the
You
opposite.
did in your literal first speech that if you, or maybe it was Pitch, I can't remember. But
I said the opposite.
One person said that evolution excludes all other forms of thought and religions, and that's not true.
Yeah, I specifically said in my opener, right, to make
There
sure
are
I went
Christians
ahead and
and
got ahead of
everything
it.
who
That actually they're different, but I just want to acknowledge that you guys saying that over the course of billions of years, evolution took place, and this is how it happened, and this is what it is a positive claim. Okay, you have the burden of proof to substantiate that positive claim. It has a ton of things you just want us to grant you, and then pretend it's science. If you want to philosophically think that it's more logical to think there's no creator or whatever, that's cool. Admit that it's philosophical. That's the fundamental difference here. You have the burden of proof. The name is literally evolution on trial debate. I didn't make it up. Okay, I'd be happy to go evolution versus creationism. It's a layup. No, I just alley-ooped to Nathan over and over. It's not difficult. I'm just saying that you guys have, a scientific substantial burden of proof that you could not in any way validate, and you conflate religion with science.
You
And that
showed
was what-
multiple times that you don't understand the evidence, and we showed how how evolution follows the scientific method. And I would like to hear one fallacy we committed.
Oh yeah, bet you begged the question over and
How?
over and over. Yeah, because whenever we asked you how to substantiate that plant life will turn into animal life, you said we showed that it's possible that it could happen. Therefore, it must have happened.
Nope,
Yes.
you're still
Well,
missing the
it's-
prediction part.
And
It's-
then
You
it's-
didn't predict.
not-
You didn't show. Wait. If you made a prediction that plants turned to animals, you'd have to then go see that happen to verify the prediction, my dude.
So you don't
it's something
understand
turning
science.
into plants
Oh.
and animals.
And that's the
That's
last.
stupid,
Nathan
dude.
says that's the last. We're moving forward because it has to be their
Well,
side.
and so can I just we
You
did
absolutely can.
You can keep it the same. You can keep if you want to have fair non-moved goalposts, we have to stay in the domain of philosophy. But that's why during the debate I did ask if you are going to consider evolution a science, and that is once you say yes, you are removing yourself from the philosophical bubble, and you're putting yourself into a pool of scientific scrutiny, and the burden of proof is much greater for a scientific claim than a philosophical claim.
And thank you so much for that, David, for the super chat, and then the panel for the responses. Sending in love from Sunflower, a member for 18 months, sending in a heart emojis, and we are sending that love right back to Sunflower. In fact, if you enjoy modern day debate, did you know that you can hit that join button and get extra juicy perks like all sorts of emojis and fun things? And so come on board. And thank you so much, Sunflower, for that comment. And then $10 super chat from Jack Hardgrave. Witsit claimed at timestamp 1 hour 8 minutes that the heat problem could be solved by quantum fluctuations and electromagnetic manipulations. Explain exactly how this works, or you're full of crap.
Okay, yeah, like I said, for example, muon decay, for example, which I don't believe all these subatomic particle claims. Actually, everything's a little vortex, and we make up all kinds of claims, and we have all kinds of evidence that has been consistently denied. Like you have the electroweak theory that eventually was accepted and integrated into standard particle physics at Stanford. But the point is that there's a unified theory. Everything is intrinsically electromagnetic. We see all kinds of fluctuations and significant structural changes that are not actually limited to material composition on the quantum scale. And that's all that you would need to actually fluctuate decay rate. Some type of like major electromagnetic phenomena would change the actual decay rate due to manipulating the structure on this smallest scale. And that's just one of many examples. And I would like to just point this out right away. Like, dude, I've been trying to debate. There are people in the chat saying like I'm scared to debate whatever creationism. Like, I've been trying to get an atheist to debate me about creationism, just the philosophy of it and the logic of it. Like Aaron Raw example, people are afraid to debate creationism versus atheism because it's logically bankrupt. So there's my shout out into the ether. If anyone thinks that they can debate me about that, I would happily do so, because once we get this out of the scientific realm where it belongs in the philosophy, well, then logically, of course, evolution would get decimated.
So yeah, you don't even understand the question. The question was, how would what you proposed, your word salad, get rid of the heat from the heat problem? And all you said was, yeah, we can speed up the decay rate. That's the problem. That is the heat. I guess you don't understand, because that is the heat problem. What you're proposing is the cause of the heat problem, and you never proposed a way to get rid of the heat.
Can you show me that when you change decay rate with electromagnetic fluctuation, that you've predicted and measured the actual heat that's given off by the electromagnetic quantum fluctuation coming from the background medium known to be a zero energy and vacuum point energy? Can you show me that? You don't know. You have no idea what the heat given off of some type of zero or vacuum energy fluctuation within a molecular structure is. So you're making up pseudoscientific claims with calculations.
So now you're claiming that the state of Earth rock is that during the flood?
During the flood? Why does that have to be during the flood? There could be
because
electromagnetic...
you're proposing conditions that are like plasma heat, core of the sun type conditions.
Why does it have electromagnetic fluctuation from a background medium? Like, and actually, like more so, I think what Tesla says, which is if you throw the background infinitesimal prodigious whirls of velocity, it would manifest as material. I don't know what just happened there. So yeah, I think that would fluctuate the actual the structure itself. That would change the decay rate, and it doesn't have to give off immense heat to do that. It would be a material composition change instantly. And quantum is actually supporting this very idea. So just saying that it would be a certain temperature doesn't make it reality.
We can observe what temperature happens when that happens.
Really? Can you cite the paper that showed that the electromagnetic fluctuation
can you do that to a specific atom, like down to an atom? You can tell how much heat is being released by what, going down in valence or energy, or
that going down in valence energy has to do with electrons that are are within the molecule, but decay happens to the nucleus of the molecule. There are things like electron capture and stuff like that, but so yes, different elements decaying will give off different heat.
Okay.
In an atom to atom heat signature, like each one particular atom as it decays will give off so much heat.
Reliably, yes.
And I am going to actually answer this next super chat, but our panelists are always welcome to as well. $10 from the Macrete Naturalist. Could we get an evolutionary debate by any chance? I don't know if creationists could deal with it, though, trying to put the God of the Gap theory in, so I'll let any one of you respond, but I just want to put in there that, like Witsit just put into the ether, as said, I want to just remind everyone that modern day debate is always looking for either current or new debaters, and so if you have a roster of debates, a little bit of experience, or just some tough grit, and you know that you want to step into the ring, feel free to contact us. The email with the description below, right below us. But yes, it looks like, I will say, they're looking for a creationist debate, so we at least have someone out there looking for one themselves.
They want a creation versus evolution, or an evolution versus evolution, because like I know there's evolution, there's a gradualism school of evolution, there's a punctuated equilibrium school of
Specifically, they would like an evolutionary psychology debate.
All right. Well, just to specify specifically what I'm laying the gauntlet down for, and I wouldn't mind someone like Aaron Raw, is atheism versus creationism, because atheists are afraid to debate the logical parameters and implications of their worldview, and it gets messy. So everyone's scared to take it. Atheism, creationism. That's the debate. And if it's creationism so stupid, it should be an easy debate, right? Just debate the philosophical, logical parameters of the two worldviews. But it seems a little bit difficult to get someone to take it.
I'll take it.
Typical debate. It happens like every 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll take
like,
it if you
YouTube
find
is
no one else.
flooded with that debate.
It's gonna be. Well, Snake, could you not interrupt me while we debated about it? You think?
We both interrupt each other. That's kind of how discussions work.
All right, man. Well, I'm not interested in a debate where every time I try to make a point. But we'll talk about it.
I try not to interrupt. Really, I'm sorry if I step on your
It's all good.
toes.
Okay.
Yeah, I
At some
think we all
point, I
did a
do
pretty
have
good
to
job.
kind of step in and assert some of my time, but yeah.
And I thought it has been a great debate,
Interrupting me.
and I've been enjoying the lively discussion. And all right, we're moving forward. Another super chat from Mike Kalion. Observable, measurable, testable, and repeatable.
Hey,
It's for you
Biogenesis.
guys.
Oh, just kidding. Sorry.
Clearly, they're saying
What
that
is the
your
question?
claim is not doing that, and it's not scientific.
It's not repeatable that we can predict genetics of viruses, pandemics.
Now looking
We can-
through the comment, they are specifically, their last one was addressing the spinning ball flying through infinite vacuum, it looks like.
Morley's experiment and Michelson-Morley experiment.
I want to clarify this too. Coherent electromagnetic fluctuations within a 0-point charge cascade have no heat effect. It actually has a cold effect, the centripetal coherent field of charge distribution, which was said in the chat, and that's exactly my point. You actually would avoid the whole heat problem. I don't care if some creationists want to like not understand how energy works. Sorry, I have to just correct that. But, go back whatever you're saying. Anything Nicholson Morley? What are we talking about? I'm all
What?
about it.
They just says, yeah, something about the spinning ball. But I do want to say too, like as far as what like certain creationists, and this is, I'm not meaning any offense to any creation institutes or anything out there. This is more like an open rebuke to sharpen iron. But we have to really look at like what the Bible says, and trying to cling to like globe models or evolution. You're appealing to the world by trying to sound like sticking with the globe, but you already deny evolution. So you're already a science denier in that regard. So it's like, you got to be all or nothing with the Bible. It's difficult to do, but it's something that we should do scientifically. We're going to try to have the Bible be a little bit more valid or validated as it is already by empirical experiments. But because that creation institute, I'm gonna look into that rate team heat decay chain, because it does kind of like math. I can write 2 apples plus 4 oranges on a piece of paper. It's math is not always science. So,
And I appreciate both of those. I want to let it's not technically the evolution side, but it is any observable, measurable, testable, repeatable in respect to the ball in a vacuum. Spinning ball flying through infinite vacuum. I just want to make sure Snake and CP, in case you wanted to have the final word.
I would love to litigate flat Earth in the next 10 seconds, but unfortunately, it's not enough time.
Sending love to all of our super chatters, sending love to all of our panel, and $10 super chat from
that was funny hearing not enough time from evolution perspective, because they're like long time
I'll need to evolve a little bit first.
Not enough time, man.
You're already at the top. We're very specially made.
Infinite time.
$5 super chat from the Science of Science. Snape is definitely Brenda. Same logic and voice.
Okay,
Who's Brenda?
it's not you. You guys, I just gotta say that the creationists got to show more morality than that. That's my
Who
opinion.
is Brenda? What is this reference?
Brenda's just
Brenda's another
some
debater.
person.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
but yeah, I just think that's distasteful. I'll take
Unconditional
up for
love.
you, Snake. You're much less unbearable.
I'll
Oh,
take the
then I
snake,
took a
though.
shot. Like, yeah, it's like, we get that a lot, so we should just try to take the high road. I feel like.
Snake, can you send me your that PowerPoint in your opener?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
I've got it. This is a lot of fun.
Panel. And I would also agree, this has been a lot of fun. $5 super chat from the Science of Science again. If you claim science and can't provide it, you lose, Brenda.
Hey, I will be right back. I'm sorry.
Send in love. I'll keep on saying we always want our questions to be more directed towards the positions and the people themselves, but we always appreciate the support, so I want to thank you, Science of Science, for
Hey,
the
if
love.
this person wants to debate Brenda, email me and we'll set it up.
There we go. We're getting debates, and we
There's
always
no one
would
named
love...
Brenda on this panel, is there? Like,
Yeah,
no?
there's no Brenda.
That's it's
No.
That
But I
is
know
true.
Brenda.
Here, Brenda, but
And so sending love, Earth is Life, $5 super chat. Wow. Oh, you know what? This is for Witsit. Give me 1 second. We'll come back to that. Well, here's a spicy one for the other side. A $3 super chat from Keegan. How do I become smart as CP? Though maybe that's not spicy, because
I don't know.
Wine.
Is he being sarcastic?
that I'm trying to figure out too. So I'm just reading it like it says. Sending love, Keegan. Thank you so very
She's
much.
smart.
I'm pretty sure it's the wine.
It's the wine. Yeah, make sure you have 3 glasses of wine before every debate. It also makes listening to weird arguments a lot more bearable. I'm just going to throw that out there.
weird. Come on now, weird. I like to think logically sound premises, but okay.
From you, Pitch. From you. We love you. Yeah.
Thank you. Right back at you. All love. The right kind of love. Good love. Truthful love, unconditional. Sometimes tough, but that's like if like someone's doing heroin, you want to be like, hey, you should stop with the heroin. The next batch might not do it for you. Even if they love it, you got to be like, hey. But no, it's all love. It's all love.
I
Oh, yeah.
got more super chats coming in. Sending love from Earth is Life. $5 says, wow, it's almost exactly when Witsit tries to debate Flat Earth
Flat Earth.
and brings absolutely no evidence.
I know. What's so crazy, man? It's like, doesn't just repeating baseless scripts like get kind of old? Like if we show you like consistent planar measurement in all engineering projects, use that, and when Nathan shows the four light like relay, we show all these different pieces of evidence consistently in different conditions that show a planar nature to the Earth. Why just keep baselessly claiming that there's no evidence when you have to just like claim your deity refraction gets you out of all of it? So you can claim that you don't think the evidence is true because you believe refraction always saves the globe, but stop saying that there's no evidence and no
Show
one
it,
brings
please.
any evidence.
Just show refraction making lights look straight on an exponentially curved surface, even though they're linearly spaced. Just show that with refraction. If you claim to know the variables in the math, just set up the experiment using that, and then you're good to go.
You'll never do it. Never do it.
$2 super chat, and thank you so much, Earth is Life. $2 super chat from the Science of Science again. Thank you for all the love and support. Can we get a Witsit and Primetime 99 team up? Hey,
I'll be down.
You got one on board. We just need to.
I could text.
work
Him.
things
Just
out.
depends on what we're gonna debate, I guess.
Thank you so very much, Science to Science. $5 to the Jokester. For everyone, is there no way that intelligent design and evolution can both be true? Good debate, Snake and Witsit. Kiss and make up.
I'm gonna pass, but I'm gonna pass on the kiss part. I still love you though, Snake, and so does the creator. And yeah, actually, creationism is the only way, even in theory, that evolution could exist. And it still can, but I'm saying. Like, I guess technically a creator can do anything, right? Just, we all know that the motivation for evolution is to propose something without a creator. And I think that good faith acknowledgement of this, instead of some like tactical attempt to pretend that isn't true, is definitely the way that you progress the conversation. Whatever.
It's patently not true because we have theists advocating for evolution. In fact, they're the majority of advocates for evolution. But yeah,
What?
most people are theists. Most people believe in evolution.
You
Most
cite them?
biologists are religious, even though less than the normal population. My
Okay,
partner-
I would love to see you
my
cite
partner-
that.
Is not denying God, in fact, affirming the existence of God. And
Okay.
I don't connect, germane to this question, I don't connect atheism to evolution at all, because evolution being true does not prove atheism, and it doesn't disprove any religion.
That's right,
Well,
but you were
I think
hyper
proves creationism.
infatuated. You were hyper infatuated with it in your presentation, and that's because that's the way that it's actually viewed when people are honest. And sure, there's exceptions to the situation, but we all know that. And like, look, I could just prove this by asking you a simple question, right? So if evolution doesn't exist, do you agree that there would have to be intelligent design?
I don't know,
Okay. So, and it's really not that complicated.
because
Okay.
I don't make conclusions based on fallacies. If evolution
not
isn't
true.
it's a fallacy to simply conclude that intelligent design is true by default.
No, I mean,
but yes,
just
my entire opener
logic.
was not hostile to religion itself. It was hostile to the creationist version of religion, but it didn't debunk God. And yes, I believe a much greater creator would create a clockwork universe that could evolve on its own, and he wouldn't have to step in and do things himself.
this dude just
So-
say a
so God could
creationist
create-
religion.
God could create life, and then it would evolve. That's why biogenesis is a separate topic.
Snake. When you said that you didn't critique religion, you just critiqued a creationist religion. Can you tell me what that
Right.
means? Like,
What that means is it doesn't debunk the idea of a God. It only debunks the idea of the creationist version of events.
And Snake, to address what you had said there with a creator would create life that can evolve according to the definition of evolution, that is like a change in gene frequency over time. The creator did exactly that. Like, human DNA has been changing for thousands of years, and so the creator actually did do exactly that, because like natural selection is a very good thing to help try to get the best genes to allow for survival for your where you're living and everything. And so that is actually that's exactly what we are observing is a creator that would use a not the macro evolution claim of common ancestor, but we do evolve continuously. I mean, that part of that definition of evolution, I don't think anybody denies.
Right.
yeah, and like I said, you can believe in both, right? It's just like we know what really goes on, and we can lie about it if we want to, but almost every atheist believes in evolution. Let's just say that.
And I just want to send a double love to the Jokester. I thought this has been a fantastic debate myself, and thanks for the love. $5 super chat from Barry Switzer. Please make novel, testable prediction with creationism.
Complete open-ended with intelligent design outside of space, time, and matter. Of course, it actually acknowledges the necessary antecedent for this place to exist in the first place, and having something outside of space, time, and matter, and then having to have intention and coherent process of determination. And I won't go too much into that because, like I said, I want someone to actually debate it. But atheists are scared to debate the logical implications of their worldview. Like I said,
I didn't hear a prediction.
And okay,
yeah,
so
anything that exists can be predicted with a intelligent designer outside of space, time, and matter.
That's not a novel prediction. It has to be a prediction that only your thing makes.
Okay, there will be a commonality between all organisms.
That's not a
I
novel
just
prediction.
developed this amazing type of app. I mean, Minnesota invented the Honeycrisp apple. Say that family in 10 generations, they want their kids to keep on pumping out the Honeycrisp apples. They're gonna want those apples and they're gonna be able to get them because they're gonna be able to select for the traits that keep getting them Honeycrisp apples. Whereas evolution, if you went many generations out, you start getting, who knows what, because it's blind, random. By default, by definition, you can't make predictions, especially novel ones with evolution. You can't tell what you're going to get in the future. Rats didn't know they were going to become us, according to the philosophy of evolution.
Yeah, can you guys give me a novel prediction of evolution?
I gave you several.
Oh, give me one
especially
right
the
now. A novel
fossils,
one. A novel one.
Archaeopteryx and Tiktaalik. But so your
That's
prediction.
you just came up with a new prediction for evolution?
I'm talking about the ones that have been tested, not one that I can make now. That
Creation is going to
tested.
say that a creator is going to make something that its fossil structure resembles a type of reptile bird.
But what? No one,
God's
no creation.
genius.
What does
predicted
novel
that.
mean?
It means I already explained this. That only it predicts. Like you can say creationism predicts the sun will rise tomorrow, or that in a few generations, apples will still be apples. Well, evolution makes the same prediction, so it's not
Okay.
novel.
Well, okay, we have
Evolution is
metaphysical components, and our information is stored in the water more efficiently than any other element. In that, if we fast and don't actually consume food, that will cure all illness. There's a
So,
prediction
So
of
you're
creationism.
so
Amy-
breatharianism is the rebuttal at this point.
If you fast, you can cure illness. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Lots of people have healed from
Cinematic wants to say something.
Oh yeah. So my students are actually doing a debate tournament in 8 hours, so I would very much like to get to sleep before it. I really want to thank everybody for allowing me onto this panel and great discussion. And come on to Debate Cafe if you guys want to continue this. We would love to have you, and I'm sure Snake will tell you more about that. But yeah, I'm sorry I have to go. My kids are competing tomorrow pretty early in the morning. So
Have fun.
Not at all. I want to thank you for joining us for this lovely debate, and I hope that your students have a great time debating themselves.
Thank you. Bye.
And
Wonderful practice.
you will see the video just like this for a second, but we have still some more super chats to go. I am going to give a warning, though. If you want to guarantee that your question is asked, now is the time to do so. This is the final countdown for all of the fun, but you actually have 2 in a row, Witsit. Fans out there, that is. Samuel King for $5 is saying, Witsit out there slaying dragons, aka serpents. And then, right back to back, the Science of Science for $2 wants to know, how can we donate to Witsit?
$, what's it gets on Cash App or PayPal.me/InAWorld.
And all right, thank you, Samuel, and thank you, Science is Science. Mentally Divergent also says, great job keeping your cool, bro. Much love, and Yah bless your fam.
Much love. God bless. Back.
Amen.
Thank you so very much, Mentally Divergent, for your super chat and those responses. And then David, another super chat, $5. Everyone knows what a fallacy is, Witsit. We're not in a DeVry, whatever community college philosophy class you went to. No one's impressed. Bye.
I would just like to say I'm actually very green when it comes to fallacies and whatnot. I don't know much about them at all, so not everybody knows like fallacies and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean it's important, and I didn't go to community college. I dropped out of college though, and I went to a private school. It doesn't matter. And the point is that logical consistency is very important. That's the only way that any type of proposition can be considered viable or logically tenable. So it's very simple. It's just important. I mean, it's basically been a thing since people began to think. So it's pretty important.
Yeah, logic is important.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's why the fallacies exist.
True. I'm learning them. A few of them.
Yeah, it's a
They're
process.
good.
And then
It
a
is.
$5
a
super
lot of them.
chat
Yeah.
from Coffee Mom. Can Team Evo explain to Team Skeptic the problem of a giant boat full of animals that only has one tiny window?
I'll try. So I alluded to it earlier where you have to have a lot of evolution within kinds in order to have all the species that exist today go back to one common ancestor so that you have few enough that will fit onto the ark. And so that creates a problem because they have to put in so much evolution into the kinds that it's more evolution than it would take to connect the kinds, or they have to severely restrict the kinds, and then there's no more room on the ark. So the heat problem also makes the ark there's no ocean. The wood of the ark is radioactive and killing Noah and his crew. But if we ignore that, we still have the problem of room. There's never been a really cohesive explanation of how you have enough room. Even if you get enough of the animals to actually physically be on there, you have to shovel poop. You have to have food. So more than half the boat actually needs to be dedicated to food, clean water. It's just a logistical nightmare, and a boat that large can't even float. We've built boats that are smaller than that of wood, and they're too large to even, they're not seaworthy. So I'm sure I'm missing a lot of stuff, but that's a lot of the major problems right there is you don't have enough labor to take care of everything or space to store food and water, let alone the animals.
Can animals
Whoa.
hibernate? I'm just curious, like, because animals, I think, animals would be able to sleep a majority of the time. I don't know if we get a chance to respond to that. Like, I think that what you addressed would be true, if the animals were not also under the influence of the creator who's trying to guide them so that their populations are able to carry through the flood and then make it to dry land and be able to repopulate their population. So
I mean, in
Well,
that
yeah,
hypothetical
you could-
scenario, there's supernatural intervention, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
in that scenario, to claim what would or wouldn't be possible, it's kind of doesn't make sense. I mean, I get that that's frustrating. I get that. I mean, I'll give you that. That's why we admit it's philosophy.
Yeah, you can solve the heat problem with a miracle. You can solve anything with a miracle.
We don't even
but
need a
that's
miracle.
not-
I showed you specific science that would solve the heat problem. I don't care about whatever institute you come up.
didn't. You showed conditions that are not possible on the Earth, in the Earth's crust, and some quantum mechanical mumbo jumbo.
Okay.
Send
get there.
send me that.
Okay. No problem. Will you read it?
Anyway, I thought I was going to say something else, but the hibernation. Yeah, some animals can hibernate, but they still have to eat. Actually, that was a misconception that I recently learned about. Is they don't just conk out all winter; they actually have to eat. And drink water.
And all right, thank you so very much for those responses. And then $2 super chat from David. Austin, also stop misgendering people.
When did I do that?
Think that's more in response, I guess, to the super chatters, if I had to guess, that were coming in. And so thank you so much, David, for your super chat and the support. And $5 super chat from Samar Farsin. Odds for one chromosome to happen by chance are 1 in 3 billion factorial. At 1 try per second, the universe needs to be zillions of zillions years older. I am
What's that one for?
not
It's for you.
100% sure.
Sounds like
I guess
evolution.
that would be for you. If I had to guess, I would say it's for you.
Can you repeat it?
Absolutely. Odds for one chromosome to happen by chance are 1 in a billion factorially. At 1 try per second, the universe needs to be zillions of zillions years older.
Right, that would be true if anybody thought that chromosomes were formed simply by random nucleotides just coming together in the correct sequence, and that's not even close to how that happens or how anyone thinks it happens.
I'm gonna say
So,
we don't know how it
Bad,
happens.
I mean,
Really
why are you
bad
saying
math.
that?
well, the basic hypothesis would be that there are some random sequences. They all have a function because they're all chemically active. So among some of them, they're going to have some functions. They're going to cooperate. This has been experimentally verified that random mutations will to RNA will actually be able to create self-replicating RNA. And from there, they evolve. You don't just start with a modern human chromosome and just assemble it in its current sequence from scratch. That's where that math comes from, and it's completely unrealistic.
You don't know.
And
I just gave you an experiment.
I was going to say, technically, there you go. You got the last word. That's all I needed. $5 from Conspiracy Tunes. Misgendering is not loving. Stop pretending to be on the side of the creator. Misgendering haters. Any-
I don't know what you're talking about. So, gender's a social construct. Whatever, bro. Stop virtue signaling.
God
It's
is a
weird.
woman, so
That's a cool story that you make claims about something you don't believe in.
it was a joke.
and
Creator's a spirit outside of the confinement of male or female.
It was a joke. Yeah.
$10
He's the father, actually, because he's authority.
to global markers. Snake, do you know the odds of complex life arising from a cooling giant hunk of molten rock? It's not a rhetorical question. Hint, Santa Claus being real is more likely.
Yeah, the odds are 1. So 100%.
Thank you for that response and your super
At least on
chat.
Earth.
Global
It happened
markers.
because it's 100% because it happened.
Yeah,
The
we're
proof is that
here.
it had to happen.
We're here, and
We're
the
here.
evidence shows that there was that life came from the
We're
earth.
here.
Well, and I see
Better than look at the trees.
we are on the last 1 or 2 super chats, and so if a super chat does not come in before those, we are about to head out. I really do want to thank Snake, CP, Witsit, and Nathan, of course, our lovely audience out there, for joining us tonight. But a $5 super chat from Professor Parks, PhD. Evolution does not preclude the existence of God, Witsit.
Yeah, I know. What my opponent's entire opening presentation was comparing it to a god. And we know that in reality, the reason that it's so desperately clung on to, as in it was propagating fake evidence for decades, and provably so, was because they needed to try to explain existence without intelligent creator so they could justify ethnic supremacy, eugenics programs, moral relativism, nihilism, and apathy to misguide people to make them more controllable because people are more prone to slave mentality when they are nihilistic. We really want to know the truth about it, and they're very clear about the fact that they're ethnic supremacists when it comes back to the origin. Not to say that people are now, but of course they've just fallen for the trick. So long story short, of course not. The only way you could even pretend evolution could happen would be to invoke a creator, not to just say, oh, well, it must have happened because here we are. You'd have to actually acknowledge the mathematical, statistical impossibility of those nucleotides turning into what we now know to be the immaculate complexity of life.
I'm
So
skeptical that they can form life, by the way. Just saying that those chemicals can become life. I'm skeptical of that claim.
So I completely reject moral relativism. I realize I am actually crusading against my fellow atheists because I think that moral relativism is bad.
Good job, bro.
But I never did I say that evolution or any of the evidence that I presented disproves God, did I?
No, I never said you did, but you were putting it against God for whatever reason.
Against
Can
the
I-
creation story. That's
And
it.
can I
Are
like
you
just
instinctively know to be mad about the Bible though, out of all the religions? But Pitch, go ahead.
I wasn't instinctively mad. I chose to go to a Christian school because I was interested in learning the Bible and I thought it would be a great place to learn about God.
But if it's just
That's
against
very- that's
creationism,
fair.
why do you instinctively know there's something about the Bible? Like atheists always single out the Bible. I'm just saying. I mean, it's because they know that there's some
I've got-
truth there. But
I've got
whatever.
3 Qurans back here that I've marked up because I attack the Quran too.
Well, that's
and
good.
I do think with evolution, like God could use evolution. I think if God did use evolution or the creation, if we're going to assume that God is there and God made everything, how God made things would attribute to the character of God. So with evolution, you have, if God did evolution, you have all of this death bringing man into the world, where if it's the biblical God, you have man that was made and then brought death into the world through the fall. So that I think there are some moral implications that can be brought about, and also attributes of the creator. Worshiping a creator that can get it right away is different than worshiping a creator that has to let life go through a lot of suffering and mistakes and mutations and everything, and some that don't quite work out, but some kind of eventually get their way there. So I think it does say a lot about the creator, depending on which mechanism the creator chooses to use.
And you cannot
Yeah,
be an
that's-
atheist and think there's moral objectivity. If you're an atheist, you have to be a moral relativist. So you have to claim that morality is subjective, because if there's objective morality, which means there's a linear code of ethics, then what intention put that in place? So that's why you have to be a moral relativist if you're atheist. Sorry. This is why
What you
atheists
just
won't debate me.
described, what you just described is moral relativism. I don't care about an intention. I care about moral facts. If God knows moral facts, then those facts exist independently. They're just facts, and we can reason to them without a God. So I am an atheist and a moral realist. We can have that
Okay,
debate.
that's all right.
We can have
Yeah.
that debate.
I want to have it with someone a little bit bigger on the subject, probably, but maybe.
Well,
bigger on the subject. I don't know what that means.
Like a bigger
but I have
channel. I want Aaron Raw or someone to step up to the plate and stop hiding behind different debates and then acknowledge atheism's implications.
well, it does
Aaron
bring
Ra
us.
is not
He's an atheist.
I don't think he's a moral realist, but I do want to make a quick comment. Sorry, Amy.
Sure. No, you're
The it seems to me that the God the God of creationism, it has some moral problems of his own, because one, he set up everything knowing in full advance what would happen, making absolutely no attempts to educate or prevent it. But also he creates 99% of life forms just to kill them off completely in the flood. So I think that there's some problems there as well.
He was sad about it.
And with
Sure.
God did know man would choose to fall. It's through man's own free will that we brought death of our own kind, plus all the animals and plants, into this world. And I think that our creator is so smart and has so much foresight that they are able to say, okay, once man falls, this is how mutations should occur in animals and in plants, and how they're going to be able to survive and adapt to their environment, or have variation that will allow them to live. So I think that our creator was able to set a wind down to the mutations and to what we see now, knowing it's free will to us to choose to fall. But once we did, God had a plan set and ready to go to help kind of cradle the fall down.
Well, the animals didn't ask for it, did they?
Just so stupid to ask why bad things would happen. What would be the alternative? It would be that we're robots. Free will automatically allows that to happen. The alternative is there's no purpose to life. It's not even complicated.
And then,
Yeah.
well, no,
We can
it's
still have
actually
free will
going to give it
and-
right back to you, Snake, because there's a question actually. Feel free to answer that, but then on top of that, it's Michael Kalion set for $2 saying, "How is atheism not a contradiction?"
Michael Lyon.
I don't know what
Thank you
you'd
so
have
very
to.
much, Michael.
It's a very reasonable mispronunciation. I did it. He's in much that.
You'd have to point out the contradiction. I don't know what you think the contradiction is. But yeah, you can have free will and God's still not setting us up for failure or, educating us or allowing mistakes.
So you want to be a robot?
God gave us a book
I
for
just
instruction.
literally, so getting
Yep.
educated is being a robot?
We gave us instruction manual. That's what Torah means: directions, instruction.
Okay, if you want to talk about contradictions, let's go into the Torah.
You would not stand a chance, my brother.
That
Darn
sounds
it.
like a fun debate here on Modern Day Debate, but we're going to a $2 super chat. JD on YouTube. Why aren't there chimp humans?
Why aren't there chimp humans? There's a huge ethical concern there. And as we know, evolution can separate things that used to be able to breed. Like, all foxes have different numbers of chromosomes. So like that's one of the problems with the ark is, okay, now there's like at least a dozen different fox kinds. So you have 7 of each fox. None of them can interbreed. They all have different chromosomes. So either that's possible from evolution, or you have to take on like a like dodeca levels of more animals onto the ark.
You can get like polyploidy chromosomal mutations, and if you have like a duplication of your chromosomal set, and now suddenly you have more chromosomes that have more of a chance to be able to mutate, you're going to be able to get those mutations. And then once you mutate too far away from others in your species, you're in your pool, you're not going to be able to. There can be extremes within the pool. Would be the creationist explanation for such a phenomenon.
And that on that we agree. So microevolution is usually agreed to by creationists.
Yeah, but it's a misnomer term, just like adaptation. You guys abuse the term, but whatever.
Oh, I get the last word.
Yes.
Word.
There you go.
I'm just kidding.
Theorist Rex for $5. Oi, Witsit, debate me
Yeah,
on
that
the
was
age
funny.
of the Earth. Challenges up on Discord.
Okay. I mean, I don't know what to see. I'm like super busy. I just launched like NASA audits, and we're hosting the summit, and I'm doing a bunch of stuff. So traveling to the documentary, blah blah blah. So I can't debate every single person that hits me up. I'm sorry, but maybe. And I don't know the exact age of the Earth. I'd say like maximum 10 to 12,000 years. I do know that you make up pseudoscientific claims to act like you know. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know who you are or anything like that.
But thank you very much, Theorist Rex. You guys can always check out also the Modern Debate Discord down there, as well as always hit us up for more fun debates and interlocutors. And all right, $5 from Question the Answers. Snake, why did your essence, or whatever it is, arrange themselves to become you? Have you any answer at all? And if you do, explain why you feel so.
My dad's sperm, I was the winner, got to the egg, and then they grew. So I don't know why my particular cell won over the other ones. I don't know how else to answer that. I don't believe that there's an essence. I believe that I'm cells. So that's the best I got for you, unless you clarify a little bit.
Thank you so very much. Question the answers and your response, Snake. Another super chat for Theorist Rex. He's coming after you. Don't be a coward, Flurfian.
Anyone that tries to pretend that I'm scared to debate someone just to gaslight me into debating is very see-through. I debate like everyone about anything that I think. So that's a cool story, bro.
Flat Earth is a debate that should happen more. These types of platforms are how, because truth gets heavily censored. So this is where we get to actually get the word out and appeal to people's logic and senses and empirical scientific data. So this is the bring on Flat Earth debates all day long.
And we're happy to be a neutral, nonpartisan platform. So thank you so very much, Theorists. And I hope everyone gets their debate on. A Another super chat, or a super chat from Jay-Z the second. Does Witsit or Nathan understand the transition from plant cell to animal cell in the early stages of life, supposedly billions of years ago?
It's not plant cells that became animals. It's a splitting of the population is what is claimed, and what is asking to be shown empirically is a split that a population can become both.
And all right, this is going to be the last question of the night for both sides. I really do want to thank all of the friends and family out there for sending all love and support. Question from Nick. He says a very serious question. How does adaptation differ from evolution? Whoever would like to go first and last.
Yeah, so I made it very clear. I think that that's like a misnomer that people can see from a creationist perspective, because they normally can see within the confinement of like the misdefinition of adaptation as if it's like some ability to like gain additional information or external information. And he said that it didn't, it comes from the parents, but then you have to obviously keep going with that, and you're going to run into a regression fallacy. Like the information is already built in so that it can be called upon to then quote unquote adapt, which means that it's evidence for intelligent design. And I don't see this said enough in evolutionary debate. And when fully grasped, it is the death of evolution on its face. In order to even invoke quote unquote adaptation, you have to invoke intelligent design, because there's a storage of information that can be accessed in order to be able to adapt to the environment. So,
Okay. So adaptation can happen on an individual level, whereas like here in Colorado, we adapt to the high altitude. But it also, germane to evolution, happens at a population level. So there's genetic adaptation. So they would be, if you're talking about the population level, adaptation is the same thing as evolution, because the population is adapting to its environment, which means changing genes. So, and to address your point about information that's already built in, you have absolutely no evidence of something like, it sounds like what you're saying is that there's just genes hanging around waiting to be activated for some new environment, when that's not what we see. We actually see that genes that are already there mutate and have different functions. So
no, actually, if you
in a
studied
sense-
epigenetics, you would know that's not true, Bon brother.
And there is
that's not what we're talking about.
animals, like a dog is able to get thicker or thinner fur depending on where it lives. But then you also have, like, there was a lizard that was let go on an island, I think in the Mediterranean, and it was primarily a plant-eating lizard. But then when it switched over to, I think, eating insects, its digestive tract had changed. That information was stored within it to be able to change to its secondary food source. Just like how in humans, when we eat animal products, we pick up different bacteria in our gut microbiome. It's an adaptation that we have, a kind of like a rubber band that we can stretch taut or not, if we, depending on how it will help us to live, because life is what our bodies are designed to do.
Yeah, and I used to say that there was junk DNA, and now they're like, oh, turns out it wasn't junk DNA. And,
Lots of function.
yeah.
Yeah, even in the original paper naming junk DNA, they said that it doesn't necessarily have no function. And actually,
Okay.
the function of junk DNA is kind of to hang out and wait to mutate into something useful.
Are you claiming you
So-
fully understand junk DNA? Because it's well known we don't.
No one
And
fully
can't there be
understands
code in there that could be
anything
useful
in
That's
science.
convenient.
in adaptation?
There are no complete sciences. There are gaps in every science. No one understands anything about all-
That is just a dishonest tactic, as if everything is in the same boat. Because you can never fully understand anything. Junk DNA isn't understood very well at all, and epigenetics has shown a huge difference in what we previously thought when it comes to genome and the DNA function. So you can pretend whatever. You
And-
guys can't make holistic claims about DNA, because it's been proven wrong time and time again, and it's way
No,
more
it's-
complicated, and it has way more information storage than you know about.
It's biologists publishing peer-reviewed papers who discovered these things.
That's who I'm invoking.
So you claim that the information is already built in. Here's a study about Salmonella compensatory adaptation to the deleterious effects of antibiotic resistance. So they evolved a new gene for antibiotic resistance. They became less fit. Then they got more and more mutations that fixed what was broken and they kept their resistance, and they became more fit than the wild type population, all because of mutations. There was no extraneous information being input. It wasn't pre-existing information. It was all mutated, and it wasn't epigenetic because they actually have the sequence of genes that changed.
I'll let you respond if you want, Witsit, but this is going to be just because a $2 super chat came in, the last one of the night, saying, with same from Theorus Rex, you have a new rival out there. Sending love, Theorus. Thank you for all the love and support. Says he could beat you even while intoxicated. It did seem like you had a final thought on what we were just saying about adaptation, though, so whatever that final thought is.
Yeah, I highly doubt it. But anyway, yeah, the truth is, like, I'd have to read the specific study you're talking about, but the truth is that when it comes to, like, say, you're like human populations live somewhere, then they change, or whatever it is, any population, it's like there's actually a very not fully understood complexity to the DNA, and this is well known. It's just objective. When we look at different people in different conditions, they actually change back and forth. Looking at epigenetics, we can prove this. It's because there's actually a storage of information that's called upon, that's built in to the DNA structure within humans, for example. So yeah, it's cool, you know. It's a cool story, I guess, or whatever, but the truth is that our DNA, our chromosomal structure, our genome, our DNA is very complicated. We're very complex, intricately designed machines, and we don't even understand the brain, the heart, water, storage, information, etc. So that's the reality of the situation. If you claim you know everything about the human body, you are deluded.
And on that note, I want to thank all of our interlocutors. I want to thank Snake, CP, Witsit, and Nathan. I would like to send a super extra special thanks to everyone working behind the scenes, our mods, and most importantly, you, our audience, for joining us tonight on Modern Day Debate. We are a neutral, nonpartisan platform welcoming everybody from all walks of life. If you're looking for even more fantastic debates, we are now all over the internet, including your favorite podcasting platform. So if you enjoy the show, why not share it with your family, friend, or member, or someone you're getting in a debate with? And please don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. It helps us reach an even wider audience, including tonight's debate on evolution on trial with our debaters, CP and Snake, and Nathan and Witsit, here to help us find that answer. Plus, if you like what any of our guests have said tonight, all of their links are in the description below. Finally, if you're looking for even more fun after the show, feel free to check out our MDD Discord, where we often throw after parties around the topic, in the description. With that, I am Amy Newman with Modern Day Debate. We hope you continue having great conversations, discussions, and debates. Goodbye, everyone!